Sleep matters. Aztec Theory. What if how you died mattered more than how you lived? Can the way your life ends decide where your soul will go? In the ancient Aztec belief system, death was not about punishment or reward. It was about energy, cycles, and cosmic roles. The afterlife was carefully structured, but not based on good or bad behavior. Instead, it was based on the way a person died. The Aztecs believed in several different afterlives, and each soul was sent to a specific place depending on the cause of death. People who died heroic or sacred deaths were given a special honor. Warriors who died in battle, women who died in childbirth, and people who were sacrificed to the gods were believed to rise with the sun. These souls would follow the sun god Tonatiuh across the sky during the day. After 4 years, they would be reborn as colorful birds like hummingbirds and butterflies. People who drowned, were struck by lightning, or died from diseases linked to water were believed to go to a paradise called Tlalocan. This was a lush, green place ruled by the rain god Tlaloc. It was filled with plants, water, and endless spring. It was peaceful, and the souls who reached it lived in comfort. Most people, however, did not die in battle or from water-related causes. They died of natural illnesses or old age. These souls had to travel to a place called Mictlan, the land of the dead. Mictlan was ruled by Mictlantecuhtli and Mictlantecuhtli, the Lord and Lady of Death. Reaching Mictlan was not easy. It took 4 years of travel through 9 challenging levels. The soul had to pass through dangerous places like mountains that crashed together, deserts without light, and rivers filled with sharp obsidian stones. To help them on this long journey, family members buried the dead with important items. These might include food, blankets, or a special hairless dog called a Xoloitzcuintli. This dog was believed to help guide the soul safely across a wide river in the underworld. Aztecs saw death as a necessary part of the balance of the universe. Human sacrifices were made not from cruelty, but to give energy back to the gods and keep the world alive. The afterlife was not a final stop, but part of a larger cycle of rebirth, nature, and divine connection. Unlike many modern beliefs, the Aztec afterlife was not about justice. It was about cosmic order. Every soul had a path. That path depended on how life ended, not what someone did. Life and death worked together. One flowed into the other. In the Aztec world, dying was not a failure or an escape. It was just the next step in a much larger story. Simulation theory. Afterlife theory. You wake up one day, but the world feels slightly off. The sky looks the same. The people are the same. But something deep inside tells you that reality is running on a script. Simulation theory afterlife ideas build on this feeling. They suggest that not only is our world simulated, but death might just be a system shutdown or transfer to another level of the simulation. In this view, the afterlife is not spiritual or mystical, but part of a digital design. The idea starts from the belief that we live inside a computer program, created by an advanced civilization. If that's true, then our deaths may not be final. They could be more like logging out or closing a file. The data that makes up your consciousness could be saved, copied, or moved elsewhere. It may even be reused in another simulated world. Some versions of this theory suggest that when we die, our awareness is uploaded into another program. This could be a cleaner world, a more peaceful version, or a level where we get to review the choices we made, like moving to a safe zone or a restart point in a game. The simulation could be collecting behavioral data across multiple lifetimes to study how people learn, react, and grow. The body would stop, but the mind or code would live on. This version of the afterlife removes traditional ideas of heaven or hell. There is no divine judgment. There is no reward or punishment unless the simulation is designed to offer those experiences. Instead, what happens after death depends on how the simulation is built and what the creators want to observe or control. This idea becomes even more interesting when compared with near-death experiences. Some people describe seeing bright lights floating above their bodies, or feeling like they are being pulled into another dimension. Simulation theory suggests these could be visual glitches or system errors that happen during the shutdown process of the mind. Another clue comes from dreams. Some people report dreams that feel more real than waking life. If everything is code, maybe dreams are temporary windows into other simulations, or hidden files inside the same system. Technology in our real world is also moving closer to this idea. Scientists are working on mind, uploading, digital consciousness, and brain-machine interfaces. If we are already creating digital copies of human thinking, it's possible that another civilization already did this on a massive scale. In simulation afterlife theory, death is not an ending. It is a reset, a transfer, or maybe just a shift into another coded experience. It changes how we think about purpose, fear, and eternity. If this world is a program, then whatever comes next might be too. But unlike beliefs based on faith, this version depends on design, data, and system control. You are not judged. You are just moved. Egg theory. Imagine waking up in a strange place after death, confused and alone, only to learn that you are not just yourself, you are everyone. Every person who has ever lived and will ever live is just another version of you. This is the core of the egg theory, a modern philosophical idea about the afterlife that has gained popularity through stories, internet forums, and videos. It was first introduced by author Andy Weir in a short story called The Egg, published in 2009. The idea is not religious or scientific, but speculative and thought-provoking. According to the theory, when you die, you meet a being often referred to as God. This being tells you that you are not in heaven or hell, but in a kind of waiting place. You are about to be reborn again, but not just into another body in the future. You are being reborn into another human life anywhere in time. That person in ancient Egypt, that child in modern Tokyo, that stranger you passed on the street last year, all of them are you. According to the egg theory, time is not linear from your soul's perspective. You experience one life at a time, but your soul is cycling through all human lives, past, present, and future. Every interaction you've had, whether kind or cruel, was essentially with yourself. If you hurt someone, you hurt another version of you. If you helped someone, you helped yourself. The idea suggests that the universe was created for you to grow and mature until you're ready to become like the being you're speaking to, the Creator, or God. The universe is your egg, and you are still being developed spiritually. Only when you have lived every life and understood every experience will you be born into a higher form of existence. This concept challenges many standard ideas of morality and judgment. It removes the idea of a permanent heaven or hell and replaces it with a system based on total empathy and unity. It suggests that all conflict comes from ignorance of this shared identity. Some people see the egg theory as comforting. It means no soul is truly lost. Everyone is on the same journey at a different stage. Others view it as a reminder to treat people better, knowing that every person you meet is essentially you in a different form. The theory is not backed by religion or science, but it offers a powerful metaphor for understanding life, death, and connection. It frames the afterlife not as a reward or punishment system, but as a giant lesson in understanding, compassion, and self-awareness. In the egg theory, death is not the end, but simply the next moment in a much bigger journey of becoming. Christian afterlife theory. What happens after you take your last breath? Can the soul truly live forever? Christianity teaches that death is not the end, but a passage to another life. The core belief is that each person has a soul that continues after the body dies. This idea is based on the Bible, which says that people are judged after death. If they accepted God and lived with faith, they go to heaven. If not, they may be separated from God forever. When someone dies, Christians believe their soul goes to an immediate state. For those who followed Jesus, it is a place of peace. For others, it can be one of waiting or suffering. In the future, there will be a day of judgment. On that day, everyone will be resurrected, both good and bad. Their lives will be reviewed, and their actions will be judged by God. Those found worthy will enter heaven, which is described as a place of joy, light, and eternal closeness to God. Those who rejected God may be sent to hell, a place of separation and sorrow. Some Christians, especially Catholics, also believe in purgatory, a temporary place where souls are purified before entering heaven. The Christian afterlife is not only about reward and punishment, it is also about grace. People are not saved only by good works, but by faith in Jesus Christ. This means that forgiveness is always possible, even for serious mistakes, if the person truly repents. The Christian view of the afterlife is one of hope, purpose, and the promise that life continues beyond the grave. Dream theory. Afterlife theory. Can what we see in dreams reveal where we go after death? Can the strange and powerful feelings we experience while sleeping be connected to something deeper? Dream theory in the context of the afterlife suggests that dreams are not just thoughts or memories, but actual glimpses into what comes next. Many ancient cultures believed that dreams were doorways. In some traditions, they were considered messages from ancestors, warnings from beyond, or even rehearsals for the afterlife. The idea is simple. When we dream, our body stays still, but our mind explores something else. Science tells us that dreams happen during REM sleep, a stage where the brain is very active. In this phase, we see vivid images, emotions, and movements, even though we are lying still. Some researchers think this is the brain sorting memories or solving problems. But dream theory adds another layer. It suggests that the dreaming mind might be doing more than just remembering. It could be visiting different dimensions. The body is quiet, but the soul might be traveling. In dreams, people fly, visit people who have died, or go to places they have never seen before. Some of these dreams feel more real than waking life. This has made many people wonder if the afterlife might feel like a dream free from time, filled with emotion and shaped by thought. In some beliefs, the afterlife is a place where your mind creates your environment. If that is true, then dreams could be practice. They could be the brain's way of exploring what it would be like to live in a world without physical rules. Near-death experiences add more support to this theory. People who have come close to death often describe floating above their bodies, seeing light, or being welcomed by lost loved ones. These descriptions often sound like deep dreams. Dream theory suggests that instead of death being an end, it could be like falling into the longest dream-on that feels fully real and personal. This theory does not rely on religion. It is based on personal experience and how the brain functions. Some scientists and psychologists support the idea that the unconscious mind is much larger than we understand. If death unlocks the full power of the mind, it might feel like entering a dream that never ends. In this view, the afterlife is not a place in the sky, but a state of the mind. Greek mythology. Afterlife theory. What did the ancient Greeks believe happened after death? Could a soul's final journey be filled with rules, gods, and judgment? In Greek mythology, the afterlife was an organized system ruled by powerful beings and shaped by a person's life choices. When someone died, their soul did not simply vanish. It began a journey into the underworld, a hidden realm ruled by the god Hades. To reach this world, the soul had to cross a river called the Styx. A boatman named Charon would carry them across, but only if they had a coin placed in their mouth at burial. Without the coin, the soul would be stuck at the edge, wandering. Once inside, the soul would face judgment. 3 judges decided where it belonged. Good people who lived with honor and kindness were sent to the Elysian Fields, a peaceful place with light and joy. Those who lived average lives entered the Asphodel Meadows, a gray space where souls wandered forever. People who committed great crimes or offended the gods were sent to Tartarus, a deep, dark place filled with pain and fear. This version of the afterlife was not about reward or punishment alone. It reflected balance. You got what you deserved. Even famous heroes like Achilles feared the underworld, saying it was better to be a poor servant in life than a king among the dead. The Greeks also believed in memory. Drinking from the river Lethe made souls forget their past life. Some believed that souls could be reborn after forgetting everything. This idea of reincarnation made the afterlife part of a repeating cycle. Greek mythology turned death into a journey. It was not soft or mysterious. It was clear and structured. The soul moved through gates, rivers, judges, and paths. Life choices mattered. How you treated others, respected the gods, or acted in war all influenced your final destination. Even though these beliefs were thousands of years old, they show how humans have always wondered about what comes next and tried to give it shape through stories, rules, and gods that reflect the values they lived by. Nothingness, afterlife, theory. A person dies. There is no light, no sound, no dream, just silence that never ends. The concept of nothingness as an afterlife theory is the belief that when we die, we stop existing completely. There is no soul, no consciousness, no heaven, no pain, no memory. It is the absence of everything. This idea is simple but powerful. It says that the mind and body are connected, and once the body stops working, the mind also disappears. Nothing is left behind. This belief is common in materialist philosophy, which views the world only through physical laws and science. According to this view, consciousness comes from the brain. When the brain dies, thought and awareness stop. There is no separate soul that continues. In this way, death is like the state before you were born. You did not feel time. You were not aware. You simply did not exist. For many people, this theory sounds dark or scary, but some find peace in it. If there is truly nothing after death, there is nothing to fear. No suffering, no punishment, no endless waiting, just complete rest. This idea is supported by neuroscience, which shows that consciousness depends on the activity of the brain. When people suffer brain damage or are put under anesthesia, their awareness fades. If the brain fully shuts down, awareness does not return. Some people who experience near-death states describe seeing or feeling nothing at all. These moments, even though brief, support the idea that death might bring a total end to experience. The nothingness theory also raises questions about the meaning of life. If there is nothing after, then what we do now becomes even more important. Time becomes more valuable. Relationships matter more. Kindness, memory, and action gain weight, not because they carry into eternity, but because they exist only once. In this view, the afterlife is not a place. It is the absence of place. It is not a state of being. It is the end of being. It is not sad or joyful. It is empty. And in that emptiness, some people find calm, a quiet that never ends. Islam, afterlife theory. A man is buried. Prayers are whispered. His eyes are closed, but his journey has just started. In Islam, the afterlife is a clear and detailed path built on responsibility, mercy, and justice. Muslims believe that each person has a soul, and when the body dies, the soul continues to live. The journey begins with the grave. After death, the soul enters a stage called Barzakh. This is a waiting period before the day of judgment. In the grave, two angels named Munkar and Nakir come to ask three questions. Who is your Lord? What is your religion? Who is your prophet? Based on these answers, the soul experiences peace or distress. It remains in this state until the final day. On the day of judgment, all humans will be resurrected. Their deeds will be shown to them. Every action, big or small, will be recorded in a book of deeds. Two angels are believed to stay with each person during life, recording everything they say and do. This book is used to judge their final place. People whose good actions outweigh the bad are allowed to cross a bridge called Sirat. This bridge stretches over hell. The righteous cross safely. Others may fall. Those who succeed reach Jannah, or paradise. It is described as a garden with rivers, peace, and eternal joy. Those who fail may be sent to Jahannam, or hell, where there is pain, fire, and regret. But Islam also teaches that God's mercy is greater than his punishment. Many people may be forgiven, even after death, if they had sincere belief and asked for forgiveness during life. Islam also teaches that even small acts matter: a kind word, a glass of water, a silent prayer. Every deed adds weight to a person's scale. The afterlife in Islam is not just about reward or fear. It is about justice. It is about giving meaning to every moment in life. The rules are known, the path is shown, and the final result is built from what each person chooses every day. Cryogenics. Afterlife theory. A person takes their final breath in a hospital room. The heart monitor goes flat, but instead of a burial or cremation, something different happens. Their body is cooled rapidly, almost frozen, and sealed inside a special tank filled with liquid nitrogen. This is not science fiction. This is cryogenics. The theory behind cryogenics as an afterlife idea is built on a simple question. What if death is not permanent, just a pause? Cryogenics is the science of preserving bodies at extremely low temperatures with the hope that future technology can bring them back to life. In medical terms, death is defined as the point when the heart stops beating and the brain no longer shows activity. But some scientists and thinkers argue that this might not be truly final. They believe that one day, with advanced technology, it might be possible to repair damaged cells, cure deadly diseases, and restart the brain. That is where cryonics, a branch of cryogenics, enters. Cryonics involves freezing the body, or sometimes just the brain, of a person who has been declared legally dead. The idea is to preserve the body in a stable state, so that in the future, doctors or machines might be able to revive the person, restore their health, and even extend their life. It is not about freezing the living, it is about stopping further decay after death has already occurred. The process begins immediately after legal death is declared. The body is cooled with ice packs to slow down cell damage. Then, the blood is replaced with special anti-freeze-like chemicals to prevent ice crystals from forming. Finally, the body is lowered into a tank of liquid nitrogen at around -196 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, biological processes almost completely stop. Today, cryonics is offered by private companies in a few countries like the United States and Russia. The cost can range from tens of thousands to over $100,000. Some people choose to preserve only their heads, believing that future science may be able to grow a new body or upload the brain into a digital system. This concept is not accepted by mainstream science. There's no proof yet that a frozen human can be revived without damage, but those who believe in it see cryogenics as a bridge to a future where death is not final. It is not based on religion or spirituality. It is a bet on future knowledge. For some, it offers comfort. For others, it feels like a delay of the inevitable. Cryogenics challenges the traditional idea of an afterlife by replacing it with the possibility of continued life through science. It does not promise heaven or rebirth. It promises a second chance if the world ever becomes advanced enough to offer it. Judaism. Afterlife theory. What happens to the soul after the body dies? Can the end of life also be the beginning of something else? In Judaism, beliefs about the afterlife are varied and developed over thousands of years. The Hebrew Bible, or Tanakh, speaks very little about what happens after death. Early Jewish texts focus more on how to live a good and moral life than on what comes after. But over time, ideas about the soul's journey after death became more detailed. One of the earliest concepts is Sheol, a shadowy place where all the dead go, both the righteous and the wicked. It is not a place of fire or reward. It is quiet and dark. Later, Jewish writings introduced new ideas. Some believe that the soul is judged after death. If the person lived a good life and followed God's commandments, the soul would go to a peaceful place. If not, the soul might go through a process of correction or purification. By the time of the Second Temple period, around 500 BCE to 70 CE, Jewish thought expanded to include resurrection and divine judgment. This period introduced the idea that in the future, God will bring the dead back to life. This event is called the resurrection of the dead. It is linked to the coming of the Messiah, a future leader who will bring peace and justice to the world. Many Jews believe that when this time comes, all people will be judged. The righteous will enjoy eternal life, while others may be punished or corrected. Another important concept is Olam Haba, which means the world to come. This term can refer to two things. First, it can mean the spiritual world where souls go after death. Second, it can also mean the future world that will exist after the Messiah comes and justice is restored. Some rabbis describe the afterlife as a place where the soul continues to learn and grow closer to God. Others see it as a garden of peace, known as Gan Eden, where the righteous rest. There is also a concept similar to purgatory called Gehinnom. It is not eternal punishment, but a place where the soul is cleansed. Most souls are believed to stay there no more than 12 months before moving on. Judaism teaches that the focus of life should be on good deeds, kindness, prayer, and justice. The afterlife is not seen as a reward system, but as a natural part of the soul's journey. The mystery is accepted, and the details are less important than the way a person lives now. In modern times, Jewish views still vary. Orthodox Jews often believe in resurrection and a future judgment. Reformed Jews may see the afterlife as symbolic or focus more on legacy and memory. But in all forms, Judaism sees life as a gift and death as a continuation, not a final end. It teaches that how you treat others, care for the world, and walk in faith carries meaning beyond this life. Purgatory. Afterlife theory. A soul stands between two places. It is not suffering like in hell, and not yet peaceful like in heaven. It is somewhere in the middle. In Christian belief, especially within the Catholic tradition, this place is called purgatory. The idea of purgatory comes from the belief that not all people are perfectly pure at the time of death. Some people die with minor sins or with unfinished spiritual growth. They are not bad enough to be condemned, but they are not fully ready to enter heaven either. Purgatory is seen as a process, not a punishment. It is a temporary state where the soul is cleansed or purified. This cleansing prepares the soul to enter heaven in its purest form. The word purgatory comes from the Latin word purgere, which means to cleanse or to purify. The concept does not appear by name in the Bible, but it has roots in several passages. For example, in 2 Maccabees, prayers are offered for the dead so that they may be freed from sin. Other texts, like 1 Corinthians, suggest that some people are saved, but only through a process that feels like fire, meaning refinement. The Catholic Church made the idea of purgatory more defined during the Middle Ages. By the 13th century, it became a central teaching. People were encouraged to pray for the souls in purgatory, believing those prayers could help the souls move faster toward heaven. Acts like giving to charity, fasting, and attending Mass were also seen as helpful for those souls. The process is believed to vary for each person. Some may pass through quickly, others may take longer. Time in purgatory is not measured like time on earth. It is more of a spiritual journey than a clock-based waiting room. Modern Catholic teaching emphasizes that purgatory is a place of hope. It means that even if someone did not live perfectly, they still have a chance to reach eternal peace. Other Christian traditions do not accept purgatory. Protestants, for example, believe that faith in Jesus alone is what cleanses a person. They argue that there is no need for a middle step. But for Catholics and some other Christians, purgatory represents mercy. It shows that God's love allows people to grow even after death. Replay. Afterlife theory. A person dies and wakes up again, but instead of heaven or darkness, they are right back at the start of their life. Everything begins exactly as it did the first time. This is the idea behind the replay afterlife theory. It suggests that after death, your life restarts from the beginning. You live the same life again, the same childhood, the same choices, the same joys and regrets. But in some versions of this theory, you are aware that you are reliving it. You keep your memories. This means you can make different choices. You might treat people better, avoid mistakes, or simply enjoy moments more deeply. It turns life into a loop where you can keep growing and improving with each run. In other versions of replay, you have no memory at all. You live the exact same life forever, like a movie that repeats with no change. This can feel peaceful or terrifying depending on how your life was lived. The idea of replay appears in both philosophy and fiction. Friedrich Nietzsche, a famous philosopher, wrote about something similar called eternal return. He asked if you would live your life the same way if you had to repeat it forever. Science does not support the replay theory directly, but ideas from quantum mechanics and consciousness studies leave room for strange possibilities. If time is not linear, and consciousness is not tied only to the brain, some thinkers believe life could restart like a saved file in a simulation. The theory also appears in modern stories and films. Characters die and wake up in the past, changing their choices and learning with each cycle. For people who fear death, replay offers a form of comfort. It means death is not the end. It is a restart button. You are not lost. You are recycled. In the replay theory, the afterlife is not a place. It is a pattern, a closed loop that keeps running until it either breaks or becomes perfect. Whether it is seen as a gift or a trap depends on how much control you have the next time around. Parallel universe. Afterlife theory. A person dies in one world and wakes up in another. The street looks the same. The people feel familiar, but something is slightly different. The idea that the afterlife might involve a parallel universe is based on the possibility that more than one version of reality exists. A parallel universe is a separate world that exists alongside our own. It may follow the same laws of physics or work differently. In some theories, there are infinite versions of reality, each with small or major changes. The person you are here might have made different choices there. The version of Earth we live in may be only one line on a giant map of timelines. In science, this concept appears in quantum mechanics and cosmology. One theory is the many worlds interpretation. It says that every possible outcome of every event splits into its own universe. If you make a choice today, there is a version of you in another universe who made the opposite choice. When applied to the afterlife, this theory suggests that death in one universe might just be the shift of your awareness into another. Instead of disappearing, your consciousness moves. In that new universe, you continue living. You may not even realize anything happened. This creates a loop of existence where you never actually stop being. You just shift paths. Some thinkers suggest this could explain why people experience déjà vu or feel like they don't belong. Maybe they have memories or senses that do not match their current universe. There are also stories where people claim to have shifted realities after accidents or near-death experiences. These ideas are not proven, but they continue to grow in popularity. The parallel universe theory does not promise a reward or punishment. It does not involve judgment. It simply offers a scientific or philosophical possibility that death is not the end. The self may just shift into another track of life. You do not vanish. You continue somewhere else. Ghosts and spirits. Afterlife theory. A door creaks at night. A voice is heard in an empty room. Something unseen lingers after death. The belief in ghosts and spirits is one of the oldest and most common afterlife theories across cultures. It suggests that when people die, a part of them can remain. This part is often called the spirit or soul. If that soul does not move on fully, it may stay behind and become what we call a ghost. This theory exists in nearly every society. In ancient Egypt, the soul had multiple parts, some of which could stay close to the living. In Chinese tradition, ancestors are honored because their spirits are thought to remain active and protective. In many Western stories, ghosts are the result of unfinished business. A person dies suddenly or tragically, and their spirit stays until peace is found. Scientifically, there is no confirmed evidence that ghosts exist, but many people report unexplained experiences. Cold spots in rooms, flickering lights, strange dreams, and sudden feelings of being watched are all linked to ghost encounters. Some researchers believe these events could be caused by psychological patterns, magnetic fields, or sleep states. Others think they are signs of energy or consciousness that remains after death. Ghost theory also overlaps with spiritual beliefs. Mediums, who claim to speak to the dead, say that spirits can visit to deliver messages. Some people report seeing or hearing lost loved ones, especially during times of stress or sadness. These experiences often bring comfort. In many beliefs, ghosts are not meant to stay forever. Rituals, prayers, or ceremonies help guide them to the next world. In this view, the afterlife includes multiple stages. First, death, then a time where the spirit may linger, and finally, peace or movement into another realm. Ghost theory suggests that death does not erase someone completely. Something personal, emotional, or conscious might still remain. This belief gives people hope that those who pass are not fully gone. They may still see, visit, or even help from the invisible edges of life. Whether as energy, memory, or presence, ghosts keep the idea alive that something continues after the last breath. Christian Rapture, Afterlife Theory. What will happen if one day people simply disappear while others are left behind without warning? How would the world react if thousands vanished in an instant without a trace? The concept of the rapture comes from certain interpretations within Christianity. It is the belief that Jesus Christ will return to take true believers out of the world before a time of great suffering begins. This idea is mostly found in evangelical and Protestant teachings, especially in the United States. The word rapture is not directly in the Bible, but the belief is based on verses like 1 Thessalonians 4:16, -17, and Matthew 24-40, -41. These passages describe an event where the faithful, both dead and alive, will suddenly be caught up to meet Jesus in the sky. It is believed that they will be taken to heaven, leaving others behind on earth. The moment is described as sudden and unexpected, like a thief in the night. No one knows when it will happen, which is why believers are encouraged to always be prepared. After the rapture, the world is expected to enter a period called the tribulation. This is described as a time of intense suffering, disasters, wars, and moral collapse. Some believe this period will last 7 years, divided into 2 parts. During this time, a figure called the Antichrist will rise, deceive people, and cause widespread pain. At the end of the tribulation, Jesus is believed to return again, not to take people away, but to judge the world and begin a new kingdom of peace. There are different views about the timing of the rapture. Some believe it will happen before the tribulation begins. This is called the pre-tribulation view. Others believe it will happen in the middle or at the end. But the central belief is that the rapture separates those who have faith in Christ from those who do not. This belief is not accepted by all Christians. Many Catholic, Orthodox, and some Protestant groups do not teach the rapture as a separate event. They believe in a final resurrection and judgment, but not a sudden disappearance. Still, for those who believe in it, the rapture is not about fear, it is about hope. It is the promise that Jesus will return and rescue his followers from the worst parts of human history. People who believe in the rapture often live with a strong sense of urgency. They believe that how you live today matters because tomorrow is never promised. Accepting Jesus, following his teachings, and being spiritually ready are seen as the key parts of preparation. The idea encourages believers to stay honest, kind, faithful, and aware of the world around them. In films and books, the rapture is often shown with dramatic scene scars crashing, planes falling, and chaos taking over cities. But the religious teaching focuses less on fear and more on readiness. The event is meant to separate those who followed Christ with sincerity from those who ignored the call. In summary, the Christian rapture theory teaches that believers will be taken by Jesus in a sudden moment, leaving others behind. This marks the beginning of a period of judgment and suffering. It is a belief based on Scripture, supported by some Christian traditions, and viewed as a call to live faithfully in the present moment. Whether seen as symbolic or literal, the rapture reflects the deep Christian idea that life is not only about now, but also about what comes after, and that being ready matters. Islamic Barzakh, Afterlife Theory. What happens in the moments after a person is buried? Can a soul be awake even after the body stops moving? In Islamic belief, the answer begins with the concept of Barzakh. It is the stage between death and the Day of Judgment. Barzakh means barrier or separation. It is not life, and not yet the full afterlife. It is a waiting place where the soul begins to experience the results of the life it lived. In Islam, death is not the end of the soul. When a person dies, their body is washed, wrapped, and buried according to Islamic tradition. As soon as they are placed in the grave, the soul enters Barzakh. At this point, two angels named Munkar and Nakir visit the soul. They ask three important questions. Who is your Lord? What is your religion? Who is your prophet? The soul answers based on what it truly believed in life, not just what it said out loud. If the soul answers with sincerity and faith, the grave becomes peaceful. It becomes wide and filled with light. The soul rests and waits in comfort. But if the soul did not believe or was dishonest, the grave becomes narrow and full of fear. The soul feels pressure and discomfort until the day of resurrection. Barzakh is not a place people can see. It is part of the unseen world. But the Quran and Hadith describe it clearly. It is a real phase where the soul remains aware. The soul in Barzakh can sense what is happening, but cannot return to the living. It is cut off from the world, but not asleep. Time in Barzakh is different. It can feel short or long, depending on the soul's condition. The purpose of Barzakh is to begin the soul's journey toward final judgment. The full judgment comes later, when all souls are brought back to life on the Day of Judgment. On that day, people receive their book of deeds, and every action is reviewed. But Barzakh is the first stop, a preview of what comes next. This belief encourages Muslims to think deeply about their actions. It reminds them that nothing is hidden from God. Even if no one sees what you do, your soul carries the truth into Barzakh. The questions in the grave are not meant to confuse, but to confirm what the person already lived by. Barzakh also explains why Islam teaches respect for the dead. Visiting graves, praying for the dead, and giving charity in their name are all ways to help the soul in Barzakh. The soul is still on its path. What the living do can still help them. It is a system based on justice and mercy. In summary, Islamic Barzakh is a stage after death where the soul waits for final judgment. It is a personal, quiet time where belief, sincerity, and actions are all reflected in the soul's experience. It is not the end, but the space between what was and what is still to come. This belief shows that in Islam, death is not a stop. It is a turn in the road that leads to the final destination. Tibetan Bardo realms, Afterlife Theory. A person dies, but instead of vanishing, their mind begins a strange and vivid journey. They are not alive, but but not gone either. In Tibetan Buddhism, this in-between space is called the Bardo. The Bardo is a series of realms or states that the consciousness travels through after death and before rebirth. This idea comes from ancient Tibetan texts, especially the Bardo Thodol, often called the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It describes what happens to the soul in the days after physical death and gives guidance to help it move forward. According to this belief, there are 6 different types of Bardos, but the most important 3 happen around death. The first is the moment of dying. The second is the period after death, when the soul becomes aware of what has happened. The third is the moment before rebirth. These stages are not random. They are shaped by a person's actions, thoughts, and emotions from their life. After death, the person experiences visions, sounds, and feelings that can be beautiful or terrifying. These are believed to be projections of their own mind. If the soul understands this and stays calm, it may reach a higher realm or even escape the cycle of rebirth. But if it reacts with fear or attachment, it may fall into confusion and eventually be drawn into a new life based on karma. The Tibetan Bardo experience lasts up to 49 days. During this time, monks may read prayers and instructions aloud to the dead, guiding the soul through each stage. These rituals are not just tradition. They are considered active help for the person who has died. The Bardo theory blends psychology and spirituality. It sees the mind as the creator of what is experienced after death. The peaceful or painful images are not punishments. They are reflections of the person's own state. For believers, this view offers both hope and responsibility. The way you live shapes what you meet after death. Awareness, kindness, and meditation are tools to prepare the mind so that it stays calm and clear when the body stops. In this system, death is not an end or a single event. It is a journey through your own mind, guided by what you practiced in life. Journey to the Underworld. Afterlife Theory. A soul leaves the body and begins to walk, but the road is long, dark, and full of gates. This is the ancient idea of the journey to the underworld. Found in many cultures across the world, it describes the soul's path after death through a hidden world beneath the surface of life. In ancient Egypt, the dead had to travel through the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. They faced trials, gods, and monsters. At the end, their heart was weighed against a feather. If the heart was pure, they moved on to eternal peace. If not, their soul was destroyed. In ancient Greece, the dead crossed the river Styx with the help of Charon, the boatmen. They needed a coin to pay him. Once inside, they were judged by 3 rulers. The good went to the Elysian fields. The average wandered the asphodel meadows. The wicked were sent to Tartarus. In Mesopotamian myth, the underworld was a gloomy, dusty place where all souls went. In Mayan belief, the soul traveled through Xibalba, facing traps and challenges. In each culture, the journey was not instant. It was a passage. The soul had to move, survive, and be judged. Sometimes it needed help. Burial rituals, offerings, and prayers were meant to guide and protect the soul during this travel. In many of these beliefs, the underworld is not just about reward or punishment. It is about balance. The journey reflects the life a person lived. Those who respected truth, law, and kindness had a smoother path. Those who did harm faced harder trials. In some traditions, the soul could return or be reborn. In others, the journey ended in final rest. The underworld journey often included rivers, gates, judges, and helpers. These symbols represent the steps between life and what comes next. Even in modern stories, the idea of crossing into a hidden world remains powerful. The underworld is not only a place of fear, it is a test of the soul. Whether seen as myth or message, the journey to the underworld teaches that death is not just a stop, it is a path. And on that path, the truth of a person's life is revealed through what they must face. top of form. Hinduism, Afterlife Theory. What happens to the soul when the body dies? Can a person live again in a new form or even in a new world? In Hinduism, the afterlife is not a final destination, but part of a continuous journey. It is based on the belief that every being has an eternal soul called the Atman. This soul does not die with the body. Instead, it moves through cycles of birth, death, and rebirth in a process known as samsara. The idea of samsara is central to Hindu thought. It teaches that life is not a single story with a clear end. It is an ongoing process shaped by karma. Karma means action. It includes everything a person does, thinks, and intends. Good actions create good karma. Harmful actions create bad karma. The soul carries this karma forward into the next life. This means that how a person is reborn depends on the balance of their karma. A person who lives with honesty, kindness, and spiritual discipline may be reborn into a better life, possibly as a human with more comfort or spiritual opportunity. Someone who harms others or lives selfishly may be reborn into a harder life or even into a lower form, like an animal or insect. This system is not random. It is viewed as a natural law, like gravity, that keeps the universe in balance. The ultimate goal in Hinduism is to break free from this cycle. That state of freedom is called moksha. Moksha means liberation. It is when the soul no longer needs to be reborn. It is not a place like heaven, but a state of complete union with Brahman, the supreme spiritual reality. In moksha, the soul reaches peace beyond suffering, time, or form. Different paths lead to moksha. Some follow the path of knowledge, studying sacred texts and meditating on truth. Others follow the path of devotion, offering love and service to a personal god like Vishnu, Shiva, or Devi. Some follow the path of action, doing work without selfish goals. These paths are described in ancient texts like the Vedas, Upanishads, and the Bhagavad Gita. Hindu funeral practices reflect these beliefs. The body is usually cremated to help release the soul. The ashes are often placed in a holy river like the Ganges. Prayers and rituals are done to guide the soul to its next destination. Family members may continue to perform rituals on certain days to honor the soul and help it progress. Hindus also believe in other realms beyond Earth. A soul may spend time in a heaven-like world if it has earned great merit, or it may pass through a hell-like experience if it has caused harm. These places are not eternal. They are temporary states before rebirth. The soul eventually returns to Earth or another realm to continue its journey. Hinduism also teaches that this life is a chance. It is a rare gift to be born human, because humans have the ability to choose, reflect, and grow spiritually. Each choice shapes the soul's path. There is no final judgment from a god in the way some religions describe. Instead, the soul judges itself through karma. The system is designed to teach and refine the soul over many lives until it is ready to merge with the ultimate reality. In simple terms, the Hindu view of the afterlife is about movement, learning, and progress. It does not end at death. It continues until the soul is free from all desires, all ignorance, and all attachments. Then it reaches moksha, the stillness beyond all change. Life, death, and rebirth are all seen as steps toward that silent, eternal truth. Buddhism, Afterlife Theory. A person takes their final breath. The body is still, but the process is not over. In Buddhism, death is not seen as the end, but as part of an ongoing cycle called samsara. Samsara means the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The belief is that all living beings go through this cycle many times. Each time a person dies, their actions known as karma help shape what kind of life they are born into next. This rebirth can happen as a human, an animal, or in other spiritual forms depending on how they lived. Karma is not just about big actions. It also includes thoughts, intentions, and small decisions. If a person lives with kindness, honesty, and compassion, their karma becomes positive. If they live with hatred, greed, or violence, their karma becomes negative. This karmic energy follows the consciousness after death and affects the form and condition of the next life. In this way, the afterlife in Buddhism is not a permanent place, but a transition. What comes after death is another life, shaped by how the previous one was lived. Buddhism also describes 6 possible realms of rebirth. These include human life, which is considered the best for spiritual progress because it offers a balance of suffering and awareness. Other realms include heavenly worlds, where life is pleasant but may distract from wisdom, and lower realms like those of hungry ghosts or animals, which are filled with confusion or suffering. These are not eternal destinations. A being can move between realms in future lives, depending on karma. For those who reach a deep level of spiritual understanding, there is another possibility: liberation from samsara. This is called Nirvana. Nirvana means the end of the cycle. It is not a place but a state of complete freedom from suffering, desire, and rebirth. It is the ultimate goal in Buddhism. When a person reaches Nirvana, they are not born again. Their mind becomes peaceful and clear, free from the illusions that cause pain. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is a detailed guide to the afterlife experience called the Bardo, or Tibetan Book of the Dead. It explains the different stages a soul passes through after death and gives instructions to help the soul find peace or rebirth. This text is read aloud to the dying or recently deceased to guide them through the process. The Buddhist view of the afterlife teaches responsibility and awareness. It encourages people to live mindfully, knowing that every choice creates a result that continues beyond this life. It also offers hope that suffering is not forever, and that every being has the chance to grow, improve, and eventually reach liberation. Moksha, Afterlife Theory. The mind becomes still, the body no longer breathes, but the soul does not move on to another life. It becomes free. In Hindu philosophy, this final freedom is called moksha. Moksha means release. It is the release from the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, known as samsara. According to Hindu beliefs, all living beings have a soul called the Atman. This soul is eternal and passes through many lives. What a person experiences in each life is shaped by karma, which is the result of their actions, thoughts, and intentions. If someone lives with good karma, meaning they act with truth, kindness, and balance, they move closer to moksha. If their karma is negative, they are reborn again, perhaps in a harder life, until the soul learns the lessons it needs. The cycle of samsara is seen as full of suffering, confusion, and impermanence. Even moments of happiness in life are temporary. Moksha is the end of this cycle. It is when the soul no longer needs to return to physical life. It joins with the supreme reality known as Brahman, which is the source of all existence. In this state, there is no fear, no desire, no ego, and no separation. The soul becomes one with everything. There are many paths to reach moksha. One is through knowledge, where a person studies sacred texts and learns the truth about the self and the universe. Another is through devotion, where a person worships God with love and trust. A third is through meditation and self-control, where the person goes inward to quiet the mind and understand their true nature. A fourth is through selfless action, where a person does their duties without wanting rewards. All these paths aim to remove ignorance and ego, which are the barriers to moksha. Unlike heaven or hell, moksha is not a place. It is a state of being. It is considered the highest goal of human life in Hindu thought. People may take many lifetimes to reach it, but every step matters. Even small acts of honesty, compassion, and learning help prepare the soul for its final freedom. The belief in moksha gives meaning to life. It teaches that the soul is on a long journey, and that beyond all struggle is the possibility of peace that never ends. Nirvana, Afterlife Theory. Can a person reach a state where suffering ends completely? Can the cycle of being born, dying, and being born again truly be stopped? In Buddhism, the answer is yes, and that answer is called Nirvana. Nirvana is the goal of Buddhist practice. It is the state where the Suler, more accurately, the self, is no longer trapped in the cycle of samsara. Samsara is the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth that all beings are believed to move through. In each life, actions create karma, and karma shapes the next life. The suffering that comes with attachment, desire, and ignorance is part of this cycle. Nirvana is the escape. It is not a place. It is not a heaven. It is a state of being in which the fires of craving and hatred are extinguished. The word nirvana literally means to blow out, like a candle being blown out. In this case, it refers to blowing out the causes of suffering. The idea of nirvana was first taught by Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, over 2,500 years ago. After years of meditation and self-discipline, he reached a deep understanding of how the mind works and how suffering begins. He taught the Four Noble Truths: that life includes suffering, that suffering is caused by craving, that suffering can end, and that there is a path to end it. That path is the Noble Eightfold Path, which includes right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. By following this path, a person can eventually reach nirvana. When someone reaches nirvana during their lifetime, they are free from desire and ego. They may continue to live, but they are no longer driven by personal wants or fears. When they die, they do not return to the cycle of rebirth. That final death is called parinirvana. It is the complete release from the physical and mental processes of existence. Nirvana is not easy to reach. It requires deep meditation, moral discipline, and wisdom. But it is not reserved for only monks or spiritual leaders. Anyone who follows the path sincerely can move toward it. Buddhism does not speak about a soul in the same way other religions do. Instead of a fixed self, it teaches that what we call the self is a combination of constantly changing physical and mental parts. Realizing this helps a person let go of clinging to identity, which is one of the roots of suffering. Some schools of Buddhism describe nirvana as a state of peace and perfect wisdom. Others focus on what it is known as state free from all suffering, confusion, and illusion. Either way, it is the highest goal of the Buddhist journey. The idea of nirvana has also influenced other religions and cultures. In modern use, people sometimes use the word to mean a feeling of great happiness or peace. But in Buddhism, it means much more. It is the end of all suffering, the freedom from the cycle of life and death, and the ultimate truth of existence. Nirvana is not an afterlife in the traditional sense because it does not involve a new location or a new form. It is the end of the need for any future life at all. It is a state beyond time, beyond thought, and beyond change. In that sense, it is the most permanent form of peace. The journey to nirvana may take many lives. It may involve countless struggles with anger, desire, and confusion. But each step forward, each small act of compassion or moment of insight, brings the person closer. And when the cycle ends, what remains is not a soul in a new place, but a silence that holds no pain, no fear, and no need to return again. Transcendence, Afterlife Theory. What lies beyond the limits of thought, matter, and personal identity? Can the human experience stretch into something greater than physical life? The idea of transcendence answers these questions through a wide and flexible belief that the soul, or the human mind, can rise above the ordinary and reach a higher state of existence. Transcendence is not one fixed belief system. It appears in many religions, philosophies, and spiritual traditions. But in all of them, it points to the same general idea. That something, about a human being, whether it is a soul, a spirit, or consciousness, can move beyond the body, beyond suffering, and beyond the normal limits of time and space. In Hinduism, transcendence is found in the concept of moksha, where the soul breaks free from the cycle of reincarnation and merges with Brahman, the ultimate reality. In Buddhism, transcendence is reaching nirvana, the end of desire and the illusion of self. In Christianity, it is the soul going to heaven to be with God, rising above earthly life. In Islam, it is the soul moving through Barzakh into judgment, and then into the eternal realm of paradise. In New Age or mystical beliefs, transcendence can mean the soul leaving the body through meditation or death and entering a new dimension. Some people believe in astral projection, where the consciousness moves outside the body and travels to other realms. Others believe that at death, the soul becomes part of the universe itself, no longer separate but fully connected to everything. In more modern or secular ideas, transcendence can even mean expanding the mind through science or artificial intelligence. Some thinkers believe that one day, human consciousness could be uploaded into machines or digital networks, allowing it to survive death and continue in a non-physical form. These views still follow the same core idea that something inside the human being is not limited by the body. The scientific view has no proof for these experiences, but millions of people across history and cultures believe in them deeply. Transcendence, as an afterlife theory, often focuses less on reward and punishment and more on expansion and unity. It is about becoming more than what you were in life. Whether that means merging with a divine power, entering a timeless state, or joining a universal energy, the goal is to leave behind the limited form and reach something higher. People who believe in transcendence may use meditation, prayer, rituals, or even near-death experiences to connect with that possibility. Some say they feel part of something infinite. Others report visions, bright lights, or the feeling of leaving their bodies. Transcendence does not always require death. It can begin during life. But in the afterlife context, it is the belief that death is not a stop, but a movement into the greater unknown. In this view, death is not feared, but welcomed as a step into truth, light, or wholeness. It is not about being judged or repeating life. It is about going beyond all limits. The concept of transcendence reminds people that they may be more than what they seem. That thought, spirit, and being could continue in forms we cannot yet see or measure, and that what comes next may not be another version of life, but something so different that even language cannot describe it. Egyptian afterlife theory. What if every detail of your burial determined your journey through death? What if the path to the next world was as complex and important as life itself? In ancient Egyptian belief, the afterlife was not just a possibility. It was an expected continuation of existence, and preparing for it was one of the most important parts of living. The ancient Egyptians believed that the soul had multiple parts. The Ka was the life force, the Ba was the personality, and the Akh was the spirit that emerged after death when everything was in balance. When someone died, the body had to be preserved through mummification so that the K and Ba could recognize it and return to it. Without a preserved body, the soul could become lost. That is why they built elaborate tombs, used protective amulets, and stored items like food, clothes, and furniture in graves. They believed the soul would need all of this in the next life. After death, the soul entered the Dua, the Underworld. This was a realm full of gates, guardians, and challenges. The journey through the Duat was guided by spells and instructions found in texts like the Book of the Dead. These were placed in tombs to help the dead navigate the landscape. At the heart of this journey was a critical event called the weighing of the heart. The dead person's heart, which was believed to contain the record of all their deeds, was weighed on a scale against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was lighter than the feather, the person was judged to have lived a good life and was allowed to enter the field of reeds, a peaceful version of earth where everything was perfect. If the heart was heavier, it was fed to a creature called Amit, and the soul would be destroyed forever. This final death was called the second death, and it was deeply feared. The field of reeds was not a place of rest, but of eternal life. People believed they would farm, love, and live happily there, continuing life in an ideal form. Kings and nobles often had more complex tombs and rituals, but even ordinary people hoped to reach this blessed place. The rituals of burial, the right prayers, and moral living were all thought to help make this possible. Gods like Osiris, Anubis, Thoth, and Ma'at all played roles in guiding and judging the soul. The process was deeply spiritual but also highly practical. It reflected a society where religion and daily life were completely connected. Every part of the afterlife was structured and based on balance, justice, and preparation. Unlike many modern views of an afterlife that focus on belief alone, the Egyptian view combined belief, behavior, and ritual. A person had to live truthfully, perform the right rituals, and receive proper burial treatment. The system was detailed and specific, and the stakes were high. In essence, the ancient Egyptians saw death not as an end, but as a gateway into a world where everything you did in life was measured. Your second life depended on how well you followed divine order and lived with truth. The afterlife was real, structured, and deeply connected to the earthly world, and preparing for it was a lifelong effort. Nordic Valhalla, Afterlife Theory. What if death in battle was not the end, but your entrance to a great hall of warriors? What if the way you died determined whether you joined the gods or faded away? In Norse mythology, the afterlife was closely tied to honor, courage, and the kind of death a person met. Valhalla is one of the most famous destinations in this belief system. It was not open to everyone. It was reserved for warriors who died bravely in battle. These chosen warriors were selected by Valkyries, powerful female spirits who served Odin, the chief god. They flew over battlefields and chose who lived and who died. Those chosen by the Valkyries were taken to Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain, which was located in Asgard, the realm of the gods. In Valhalla, warriors were welcomed into a grand hall with a roof made of golden shields and walls lined with spears. Every day, these warriors would fight each other in combat for sport, not out of hate. At the end of the day, their wounds would heal, and they would feast together on roasted boar and mead served by Valkyries. It was a place of endless honor, strength, and celebration. But Valhalla was not just a reward. It was preparation. These warriors were being trained for Ragnarok, the final battle of the gods. When that day came, they would fight alongside Odin against the forces of chaos. So Valhalla was both a reward for bravery and a duty that continued beyond death. Not all souls went to Valhalla. Those who died of sickness, old age, or in ways not related to battle might go to other realms. Helheim, ruled by the goddess Hel, was one such place. It was not a place of torment, but a quiet and shadowy realm where most ordinary people went. The idea of the afterlife in Norse belief focused on strength, loyalty, and the way a person died. Dying in fear or shame was viewed very differently than dying with a weapon in hand. This belief helped shape Viking culture, encouraging bravery and loyalty even in the face of death. People believed that their death had meaning and that their courage could lead them to eternal glory. There were also beliefs in other destinations, like Folkvang, a meadow ruled by the goddess Freya, where half of the fallen warriors might go instead of Valhalla. The details varied by region and time, but the focus remained on valor and identity in the face of death. Valhalla was not a place of rest, but of purpose. Warriors kept their strength, their honor, and their pride. It was a world that valued what a person did in their final moments, and it gave meaning to sacrifice. The Norse afterlife was not gentle or quiet. It was a continuation of the warrior's path. To live with bravery was to earn not just fame, but a place in the most honored hall of the gods. Mayans, Afterlife Theory. What happens when the body dies, but the soul continues its journey through darkness? In ancient Mayan beliefs, death was not the end, but the start of a long, complex passage into the underworld. The Mayans believed that the world was layered. There was the world of the living, the sky above, and below it, all was Xibalba, the underworld. This place was ruled by powerful and fearsome gods. It was not a place of reward or punishment, but a realm where all souls had to pass through, regardless of how they lived. When a person died, their soul was believed to travel into Xibalba. The journey was dangerous and filled with challenges. The soul had to pass through rivers of blood, houses of darkness, and places filled with traps. These trials tested the soul's strength and wisdom. The idea was that only those who were spiritually prepared could make it through safely. The Mayans believed that people who died in specific ways had easier paths. Warriors who died in battle, women who died in childbirth, and people who were sacrificed in sacred rituals were believed to go directly to the heavens, skipping the long path through Xibalba. This shows that death with purpose or honor was highly respected. To help the soul on its journey, Mayans placed maize in the mouth of the dead. Maize was a sacred crop and symbol of life. It was believed to feed the soul in the next world. Sometimes, a small jade bead was also placed in the mouth, representing the breath or spirit. Funerals and burial rituals were important. Families performed ceremonies, offered food, and lit fires to support the soul as it traveled. These rituals showed that the connection between the living and the dead remained strong. The dead could influence the living, so respect had to be shown. Mayans also believed in cycles. Just as crops grew, died, and returned, so did the soul. Rebirth was possible, and ancestors were thought to guide future generations. Kings were often buried in pyramid temples because they were seen as connecting the human world with the gods. The afterlife in Mayan belief was not a simple destination. It was a long, symbolic journey. It taught that courage, honor, and spiritual strength mattered even after death. Life was a preparation, and death was just another part of the cycle. Sumerian Beliefs. Afterlife Theory. What does the soul face when it steps into a silent world beneath the earth? In ancient Sumerian beliefs, the afterlife was a place of shadows. It was not joyful, nor terrifying. It was empty. The Sumerians lived in Mesopotamia more than 4,000 years ago. Their view of the afterlife was shaped by the natural world around them, which could be harsh, dry, and unpredictable. They believed that all souls, regardless of how they lived, went to the same place after death, a dark, underground realm called Kur, or Irkala. When someone died, their Sular Gidam left the body and traveled to this underworld. It passed through 7 gates, each one guarded and sealed. Only after passing all 7 could the soul reach the inner part of the underworld. The journey was not one of tests or punishment, but it was slow and final. Once the soul reached the underworld, it lived in a dusty, silent land. There was no joy or pain. The dead ate dry clay and drank dirty water. They had no purpose, only existence. This belief was based on the idea that death equalized all people. Kings and servants ended up in the same place. There were no rewards for the good or punishments for the evil. To help the dead, families performed regular rituals. They brought food and drink offerings to the graves. This kept the dead fed and at peace. If the dead were forgotten, they were believed to become restless or angry. Ancestors were honored to keep balance between the worlds of the living and the dead. the goddess Ereshkigal ruled the underworld. She was powerful and strict. No one who entered her realm could return. Even gods feared her authority over the dead. There are stories in Sumerian myths of gods or heroes who tried to enter and return, but it always came with great cost. Unlike other ancient beliefs, the Sumerians did not describe a happy heaven. Their view was practical. Life was for living. Death was a dark resting place. The focus was on doing well in this world because the next one would not change. Over time, later Mesopotamian cultures like the Babylonians added layers of judgment and divine reward, but early Sumerian thought kept the afterlife simple and quiet. Their beliefs remind us that the mystery of death has always been part of human thought, even in the oldest known civilizations. Island of the Blessed, Elysium. Afterlife Theory. Imagine dying not into darkness or fear, but into a place of calm skies, green fields, and endless peace. In ancient Greek belief, that place was Elysium, also known as the Island of the Blessed. It was not a place for everyone. It was a reward only for those who lived with great virtue, courage, or favor from the gods. Elysium is part of Greek mythology, especially in writings from Homer, Hesiod, and later poets like Virgil. It is different from the usual underworld ruled by Hades, where most souls went after death. The common dead entered a gray and quiet world called the Asphodel Fields, but Elysium was special. It was a paradise for heroes, poets, priests, and those chosen by the gods. Early myths described Elysium as a set of islands far beyond the edge of the known world in the Western Ocean. Later traditions placed it in the underworld, but still as a separate, beautiful part. People who entered Elysium were believed to live without pain, working only when they wanted, enjoying music, feasts, and eternal spring. Life there was pleasant and free from struggle. There was no war, no hunger, and no sickness. The idea of reaching Elysium was closely tied to a person's honor and deeds in life. Greek heroes like Achilles and Menelaus were said to have gone there. But it was not only for warriors. Philosophers and those who followed spiritual practices that pleased the gods could also be allowed in. According to the philosopher Pindar, even ordinary people could reach Elysium if they lived with justice and kindness. The process of getting to Elysium was not fully described, but many stories say it involved the judgment of the soul after death. If someone passed that judgment with a clean and noble life, they could be sent to this peaceful land. In some stories, those who lived 3 lives of virtue could go to an even higher part of Elysium, known as the Isles of the Blessed. The idea of Elysium influenced later ideas of heaven in other cultures. It represents a reward not just for belief, but for action, courage, and moral strength. It is not a place of gods alone, but a place for humans who reach a level of goodness that sets them apart. This vision of the afterlife reflects the Greek focus on excellence, honor, and human potential. It teaches that what you do in life matters, and that peace in the next world can be earned by how you live in this one. In modern times, the term Elysium is still used in art and literature to describe ideal peace or paradise. But its ancient meaning remains tied to the hope that the best people, those who strive to live well and truly, may find eternal rest in a perfect place. Aaru Field, Afterlife Theory. Picture a soul stepping out of its body and into a wide field of golden crops, standing before a calm river under a sky that never darkens. This is Aaru, the ancient Egyptian vision of a perfect afterlife. Also called the Field of Reeds, Aaru was imagined as a mirror of Egypt's best lands, only more beautiful, endless, and peaceful. It was the place where the blessed dead went to live forever in joy and comfort. In Egyptian belief, life after death depended on a person's behavior, beliefs, and how well they followed the principles of Ma'at. Ma'at means truth, balance, and cosmic order. After death, a person's soul went through a series of events. First, it had to be properly prepared with rituals and mummification. Then it entered the Duat, the Egyptian underworld, a place of gates, guardians, and trials. The most important moment came in the Hall of Ma'at. The heart of the dead was weighed on a scale against a feather that symbolized truth. If the heart was heavier due to lies, greed, or cruelty, the soul was eaten by a monster called Ammit, and its journey ended. But if the heart was light and balanced, the soul was declared pure and allowed to enter Aaru. The field of reeds was described as green, fertile, and peaceful. Souls in Aaru lived much like they did on Earth, but without pain or death. They could farm, fish, and be with their loved ones. Some texts say the field stretched forever, with canals, trees, and cool winds. Everything was perfect. The soul could even meet the gods. The most honored souls might live close to Osiris, the god of the dead and the ruler of Aaru. To reach Aaru, the dead also had to know spells, passwords, and names of gods. These were written in the Book of the Dead and placed in tombs. These texts were like travel guides for the soul, helping it navigate dangers and answer questions from divine gatekeepers. Aaru was not automatic. It was earned. Egyptians believed that what you did in life shaped what you would face in death. Being kind, honest, and respectful helped the soul succeed. Rich or poor, everyone had a chance to reach Aaru if they followed Ma'at. The idea of Aaru shows how important harmony and balance were to Egyptian culture. It taught that death was not an end, but a beginning of a new kind of life, one that could be peaceful and eternal if lived well. Even today, the Field of Reeds stands as one of the oldest and most detailed dreams of paradise. Yama Loka. You close your eyes for the last time. The world fades. There is no pain now, no body. But something is still watching, something ancient. You are not in heaven or hell. You are somewhere in between. You are in the court of Yama. Yama Loka comes from Hindu beliefs. It is said to be the realm where souls go after death to face judgment. According to ancient scriptures like the Garuda Purana, when a person dies, their soul leaves the body and travels through a dark path known as the Pretaloka. This journey takes about 10 days. During this time, rituals are performed by the family to help the soul move forward. After that, the soul reaches Yama Loka, which is ruled by the god Yama, the lord of death and justice. Yama sits on a high throne. His eyes see everything, not just what you did, but why you did it. In this realm, there are no lies, no excuses. Every action from your life is reviewed. The good and the bad, the cruel and the kind. Hindu texts describe that Chitragupta, Yama's assistant, keeps a detailed record of every person's karma. Karma here is not about punishment. It is a system of cause and effect. Every good deed plants a seed. Every harmful act leaves a trace. The soul is not rewarded or punished based on emotions. It is measured based on its balance of actions. Based on this judgment, the soul is either sent back to be reborn on Earth, or it travels to one of many possible realms. If a soul lived a life full of dharma, meaning right action and duty, it may go to a higher realm called Swarga. If the soul caused pain, broke duties, or acted with selfishness, it may go to Naraka, which is often described like hell, filled with symbolic suffering that reflects the karma of the soul. But these destinations are never permanent. That is what makes Yama Loka different from Western ideas of eternal heaven or hell. Hindu philosophy sees life and death as part of a cycle called samsara. The soul keeps moving through this cycle until it reaches liberation or moksha. Yama Loka is not the end. It is a checkpoint, a spiritual courtroom that helps the soul continue its journey. Now think about this. Imagine if your thoughts and actions were recorded not by cameras or machines, but by the universe itself. Imagine if every time you lied, helped someone, or chose to stay silent when it mattered, that energy was saved like data in a cosmic archive. That is how Yama Loka operates, not with punishment, but with correction, with learning. There are also symbolic parts of this concept. Yama himself is often misunderstood. He is not seen as evil or cruel. He is firm but fair. He represents time and truth. His realm is not just a place of fear, but a place of balance. Even in ancient temples, Yama is rarely shown with rage. He holds a danda, or staff, which symbolizes law and control. He rides a buffalo, which represents calm power. This shows that death, in this belief, is not chaos. It is order. Over time, the idea of Yama Loka also influenced other traditions. In some versions of Jainism and Buddhism, similar judgment places appear. Even in other religions, like Christianity or Islam, the idea of a soul being judged after death is present. But Yama Loka remains unique because it is not a place of final reward or eternal punishment. It is a place of reflection, correction, and forward movement. In the modern world, some people interpret Yama Loka more metaphorically. They see it as a way to understand consequences, a mental place where we are forced to look back on our life. Even psychologists talk about deathbed reflections, where people naturally begin to review their life choices: regret, peace, fear, or clarity. These are emotional echoes of what Yama Loka represents. Whether you believe in a physical realm or just the weight of conscience, Yama Loka challenges you to live with awareness, because in the end, you might not face a god, but you will surely face yourself. Rastafarianism. What happens to the soul when the body dies? Can death be a return instead of an end? These are the kinds of questions that shape the beliefs of people who follow Rastafarianism, a spiritual and social movement that began in Jamaica during the 1930s. It started as a response to centuries of oppression, slavery, and colonial rule. It became a way for people, especially of African descent, to reclaim dignity, identity, and a connection to something bigger than themselves. One of its core ideas is about life after death, but it is not the kind of afterlife most people hear about in other religions. Rastafarian beliefs are strongly tied to the physical world. They do not always describe the afterlife as a place with angels or fire or judgment. Instead, they believe life continues through spiritual connection, cultural legacy, and a return to roots. Many Rastafarians reject the idea of death as the final step. They see it more as a transition. When a person dies, their physical body stops, but the spiritual energy continues to live. This energy is part of Jah, which is their name for God. Jah is not a distant being, but is present in all living things. To them, each person carries the presence of Jah inside them. So when someone dies, that presence is not gone. It returns to the divine source. One of the most important ideas in Rastafarianism is the concept of repatriation. It means returning to Africa, the ancestral homeland. Some believe this return will happen physically during their lifetime. Others believe it happens spiritually after death. In this way, death is not a fall into nothing. It is a return to origin. Zion is the name often used for this final destination. It is not just a physical place, but a state of freedom, peace, and unity with Jah. In contrast, Babylon is used to describe the corrupt systems of the modern world, full of injustice, greed, and lies. To leave Babylon and reach Zion is the goal. So for many Rastafarians, life is a journey away from Babylon and towards Zion, both while alive and after death. Music plays a strong role in spreading these beliefs. Reggae, especially the songs of Bob Marley, carries many of these messages. In lyrics, you will hear references to Zion, Jah, and spiritual freedom. They are not just metaphors. They are reminders of a real path they believe in. The body may be weak, society may be unfair, but the soul is powerful and guided by truth. This is the hope that continues beyond death. There is no single text or rulebook for Rastafarianism. Different groups may have slightly different views about what happens after death, but most agree that the soul does not vanish, it transforms or returns. Some also believe in the resurrection of Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, who they view as the earthly form of Jah. They believe that in the end, he will return to bring justice and restore balance. So the afterlife is not a fixed destination. It is a continuing process, a spiritual evolution, a reunion with divine truth, a return to the real self, free from lies. In psychology, this belief system can be linked to the need for meaning. When people face oppression or loss, they search for a bigger picture. Rastafarianism offers that. It tells followers that they are not lost. They are part of a larger spiritual movement, that even in death they are not broken or erased. Their spirit joins something eternal. It helps people feel stronger, even when life is hard. It builds hope where hope has been crushed. The real-world impact of this belief can be seen in how followers treat life and death. Funerals are not just sad endings, they are spiritual transitions. Instead of mourning only with tears, people gather to celebrate the soul's journey. They sing, they remember, they stay connected. It gives comfort to believe that loved ones are not gone, just moved on to a higher form. For people outside the faith, these ideas may sound symbolic, but for Rastafarians, they are real as breath, as real as sound, as real as the roots that hold a tree to the earth. Never-ending life theory. Can a person ever truly stop existing? What if death is not the final stage, but just one frame in an endless sequence? These questions have been asked in science, religion, and philosophy for centuries. The never-ending life theory explores the possibility that life continues in some form forever, even if the body does not. This idea is not always about heaven or reincarnation. It is about the core belief that consciousness or identity does not disappear after death. Different cultures and thinkers approach this in their own ways. Some say the soul keeps moving into new lives. Others believe we are in a simulation that loops. Some scientists explore quantum theories about awareness lasting beyond the body. In all cases, the main idea is simple. Death is not the end. Life continues, just in a different way. In Hindu and Buddhist beliefs, the idea of endless life comes through the cycle called samsara. This is the loop of birth, death, and rebirth. A person dies, but their soul takes on a new body. This cycle continues until they reach liberation. That liberation is called Moksha in Hinduism and Nirvana in Buddhism. Until then, the soul keeps moving. Each life is a chance to learn something new or fix something old. This belief is very old. Ancient texts in India like the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita talk about this cycle. People are not just their bodies. They are part of something eternal. In modern theories, especially those related to consciousness, some scientists are exploring whether awareness is a basic part of the universe, not just a product of the brain, but something deeper. Quantum physicists like Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff have studied how consciousness might come from quantum processes in brain cells. They suggest that when the brain dies, these quantum processes may not fully stop. They may go somewhere else. This is not proven, but it leads to questions about whether the mind could exist after death in a different form. Maybe not as memory or thought, but as something like awareness. There are also more science fiction ideas that some thinkers take seriously. One example is digital immortality. In the future, a person's brain could be scanned and copied into a computer. The body might die, but the copy of their mind could live on in a digital world. It would talk, think, and even remember like the person did. Another idea is the simulation theory. It says that our entire reality might be a simulation created by a more advanced being or system. If that is true, then dying might simply mean logging out. But the program could restart again, and again, with new data, or the same identity in a different timeline. In both cases, the key thought remains. You do not disappear. You continue, somehow. There are even stranger versions. Some people believe in parallel timelines. Every choice we make creates a new version of reality. In one version, we die. In another, we keep living. In this way, there is always a version of us alive somewhere. It means life never truly ends. It just moves from one track to another. Some connect this idea to the theory of quantum immortality, where you never experience your own death. Your consciousness simply continues in a universe where you survived. It feels like you never died at all. The never-ending life theory can feel strange or comforting. It depends on how you look at it. But it shows how many people across the world, across history, and across beliefs do not accept death as a true end. From ancient religions to new science, the idea of endless life keeps returning. The language changes, the symbols change, but the hope stays the same. Life moves forward in some form. It transforms, repeats, or expands. You do not vanish, you adapt. Whether through a soul, a simulation, or a system of universes, something about you keeps going. And that is why this theory stays alive in so many human minds. Cosmic theory. You feel your body slow down. Your breath becomes quiet. The heart stops. The world disappears. But instead of nothing, you find yourself surrounded by stars. Endless space. Silence filled with meaning. It is not heaven. It is not a tunnel of light. It is the universe itself, waiting. Cosmic theory is a modern and spiritual idea about what happens after death. It suggests that when you die, your consciousness does not vanish. Instead, it returns to the universe, to the very fabric of space and time that gave rise to it. This concept is not linked to any single religion, but it takes ideas from physics, philosophy, and ancient spiritual traditions. The core belief is that your mind, or soul, is made from the same energy as the cosmos, and when your body dies, this energy returns to its original source. In scientific terms, energy cannot be created or destroyed. This is the law of conservation of energy. Your body breaks down after death, but the atoms and energy that once made your thoughts and feelings do not disappear. Some scientists and philosophers suggest that if consciousness is a product of quantum processes inside the brain, then maybe these processes continue in another form. Quantum theories, especially from thinkers like Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, explore the possibility that consciousness may be linked to quantum fields that go beyond the body. They suggest that the brain might act like a receiver, and when it stops functioning, consciousness returns to a greater field, the universe itself. This idea is often compared to how a radio picks up signals. The radio is like the body, the signal is like the mind. When the radio breaks, the signal does not vanish, it still exists in space. Some people extend this thought and say that your essence merges back into the cosmic network, possibly joining something larger, like universal awareness or an infinite intelligence. Ancient traditions also share similar ideas. In Hinduism, the Upanishads talk about Atman, the inner self, returning to Brahman, the universal reality. In Buddhism, some schools describe a return to the void or pure consciousness. Even early Greek thinkers like Heraclitus believed the soul was a spark of cosmic fire. Modern cosmic theory echoes these beliefs with a scientific twist. Imagine standing in a desert under a wide night sky. You feel small, but also connected. That is the feeling behind cosmic theory. You are not ending, you are becoming part of something much bigger. The theory also connects with the idea of panpsychism, the belief that consciousness might be a property of all matter. If everything, even particles, has a tiny bit of awareness, then death might just be a shift from one form of awareness to another. People who have had near-death experiences often describe feelings of floating, merging with light, or seeing the universe from above. Some feel they became part of everything. These reports are not proof, but they do support the emotional and spiritual tone of the cosmic theory. It gives comfort to those who fear death by offering a version of continuity not as a person, but as part of the universe. In everyday terms, this theory helps people think about life with more awe. If you believe you come from the stars and will return to them, then life feels more sacred. Even decisions may feel different. You may treat others and nature with more care, knowing you are all made of the same cosmic material. This theory does not promise rewards or punishments. It does not focus on sin, judgment, or heaven. It focuses on unity. You began as stardust. You return to stardust. Consciousness is not lost. It is recycled, remixed, reabsorbed. Whether this is literal or symbolic, the idea touches something deep. It says your life is not isolated. You are part of the story of the universe. And maybe, just maybe, death is not an end. It is a return. Jehovah's Witnesses. What happens after death if you believe the soul is not immortal? Can there be a future life without a present spirit world? These are the kinds of ideas that guide the beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses. Their understanding of the afterlife is very different from most traditional religions. It is not based on the idea that everyone has an immortal soul that floats away after death. Instead, they believe that when a person dies, they stop existing completely. No part of them keeps living in any form. There is no burning in hell, no floating in heaven, and no wandering spirit. Death, in their view, is like a deep, dreamless sleep. The person has no awareness, no pain, and no consciousness. But this does not mean it is the end forever. Jehovah's Witnesses believe in the hope of resurrection. This means they believe that one day, God, whom they call Jehovah, will bring back the dead to life. This future event is called the resurrection, and it is one of the main parts of their faith. According to their interpretation of the Bible, especially the book of Revelation and the teachings of Jesus, this resurrection will happen after a great battle between good and evil called Armageddon. After this final battle, God will restore the earth to a peaceful and perfect state, similar to the Garden of Eden. It will be a paradise. And people who have died will be brought back to life to live in this new world. But not everyone will be resurrected. According to their teachings, God will raise only those who are worthy, based on their faith and actions, including people who never had the chance to know the truth during their lifetime. This gives a second chance to many. People who knowingly rejected God or lived in evil will not be brought back. They will stay in the sleep of death permanently. This is also why Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe in eternal torment or hell. They believe that a loving God would not torture people forever. Instead, the ultimate punishment is permanent death, which they describe as non-existence. They base these beliefs on many Bible verses. For example, in Ecclesiastes 9-5, it says, "The dead know nothing at all." In John 5:28-29, Jesus says that the dead will hear his voice and come out of the graves. These verses are taken very literally. Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept teachings about the soul living on because they believe such ideas come from ancient pagan religions and not from the Bible. In their view, humans are souls rather than having souls. When the body dies, the soul ends. It is not a separate thing. This belief changes how they view funerals, death, and grief. Funerals are quiet and respectful, but not dramatic. There are no prayers for the dead, because they believe the dead cannot hear them. Instead, they focus on comforting the living with the hope of resurrection. This helps reduce fear about death. It also influences their choices about life. They believe that their actions now will decide whether they are part of that future paradise. So they avoid violent activities, political wars, and anything they see as morally wrong. Their hope is not in going to heaven, but in living forever on earth. Only a small group of 144,000 faithful people, chosen by God, will go to heaven to rule alongside Jesus as kings and priests. This number is taken from the book of Revelation. The rest of the faithful will live forever on a renewed earth. That is their paradise. They do not seek reincarnation or spiritual travel. Their focus is on the future that God has promised. In modern times, this belief system has spread across many countries. There are over 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide. They are known for going door to door to share their message. They carry books and magazines like Awake and The Watchtower. These materials often explain their views on death, life, and the future. For them, the afterlife is not mystery or magic. It is a clear promise. Death is sleep. God will wake you up. And if you lived right, you will live again in a better world. Simple, quiet, and certain. That is the life after death, according to Jehovah's Witnesses. Mormon. You live your life trying to be kind, honest, and faithful. But deep down, you wonder what happens after you die. Will you see your family again? Will you still be yourself? In the teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly called Mormonism, there are very clear answers to those questions. According to their belief, life does not end with death. It simply moves to the next stage of an eternal plan. This plan is called the plan of salvation. It explains where we came from, why we are here on earth, and what happens after we die. In Mormon teachings, every person lived before birth as a spirit child of God in what is called the premortal existence. This was a time before earth life. In that state, people had identity and agency, but no physical body. Coming to earth was a necessary step to gain a body, learn through experience, and prove their willingness to follow God's commandments. This life is seen as a test. It is also a time to grow, make choices, and build eternal relationships. Death is not viewed as a punishment. It is simply a doorway to the next phase of life. After death, the spirit leaves the body. But the spirit does not sleep or disappear. It enters the spirit world. In Mormon belief, the spirit world has two main areas, spirit paradise and spirit prison. Those who lived faithfully and accepted the gospel of Jesus Christ go to paradise, a place of peace and rest. Those who did not have the chance to learn the gospel, or who rejected it, go to spirit prison. However, spirit prison is not just for punishment. It is a place of learning and preparation. Spirits in prison can be taught the gospel by those in paradise. This teaching continues the work of salvation beyond death. People still have agency, and they can choose to accept or reject the teachings they receive in the spirit world. One unique aspect of Mormon belief is the practice of baptism for the dead. Church members are baptized in temples on behalf of those who have died without the chance to receive the gospel. This practice is not about forcing religion on the dead. It is about offering them a choice. If a deceased spirit accepts the gospel in the spirit world, then the baptism performed on their behalf is counted as valid. If they reject it, the baptism has no effect. This process respects freedom while providing opportunities for eternal progress. Eventually, there will be a physical resurrection. This means every person who has ever lived will receive their body again, made perfect and immortal. This resurrection will happen because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which Mormons believe opened the way for all of humanity to overcome death. After resurrection comes judgment. In this judgment, people are assigned to one of three kingdoms of glory, based on their faith, choices, and acceptance of Christ. These kingdoms are called the Celestial Kingdom, the Terrestrial Kingdom, and the Telestial Kingdom. The Celestial Kingdom is the highest, and is where people who lived faithfully and accepted Jesus Christ live with God forever. Families can be together there forever if they were sealed in a Mormon temple and lived in harmony with God's laws. The Terrestrial Kingdom is for good people who did not fully accept the gospel in life, but were still honorable. The Telestial Kingdom is for those who lived in sin and rejected the gospel. Even this lowest kingdom is still considered a place of glory and peace, far better than mortal life. Only a small number, called sons of perdition, are believed to go to outer darkness, a place of complete separation from God. Mormon beliefs about the afterlife are structured, detailed, and deeply centered on the idea of eternal families and growth. Death is not an end or a loss. It is a step forward in a journey that began before birth and continues forever. It is a hopeful and organized view of life's purpose and what comes next. Limbo, Catholicism. What happens to a soul that never had a chance to choose? What if a child dies before being baptized, or someone lives a good life but never knew the faith? Can a place exist that is neither heaven nor hell, but somewhere in between? Limbo is a concept that comes from Catholic tradition. It is not found directly in the Bible, but was developed over centuries by theologians trying to solve a deep spiritual problem. According to Catholic doctrine, baptism is necessary for salvation. But what about those who die without it, especially infants or people who lived before Christ? The idea of limbo offered a possible answer. The word limbo comes from the Latin word limbus, which means edge or boundary. In Catholic thought, limbo is considered a place on the edge of hell but without suffering. It is not a place of fire or punishment. It is calm and peaceful, but it lacks the joy of being with God. There are two main kinds of limbo discussed historically: the limbo of the fathers and the limbo of infants. The limbo of the fathers refers to a temporary state where righteous people who lived before the time of Christ waited for salvation. According to tradition, these souls could not enter heaven until Jesus died and rose again. Figures like Abraham, Moses, and David were believed to be in this limbo until Christ descended into it after his crucifixion, an event Catholics call the harrowing of hell. This part of limbo is no longer considered active because those souls were believed to be taken into heaven. The second and more debated idea is the limbo of infants. This idea became more common in the Middle Ages. It was based on the belief that original sin, which is inherited from the first humans, must be washed away through baptism. Without baptism, even innocent infants were believed to be excluded from heaven. But because they had no personal sin, they were not sent to hell either. Limbo was seen as a middle place, peaceful, natural happiness, but no direct connection to God. Theologians like St. Augustine were strict. He believed unbaptized infants went to hell, though with the lightest punishment. Later thinkers, like Thomas Aquinas, softened this view and argued that these souls experienced perfect natural joy in limbo. They were not tormented, but they were still without divine presence, which made their joy incomplete. Over time, the idea of limbo became uncomfortable for many people. It raised ethical and emotional questions. Why would a loving God deny heaven to innocent children? Why would eternal destiny depend on a ritual they never had a chance to receive? The Catholic Church never officially declared limbo as doctrine. It was always considered a theological theory, not a required belief. In 2007, the Vatican released a detailed document called The Hope of Salvation for Infants Who Die Without Being Baptized. It said there are good reasons to hope that these souls are saved and go to heaven. While the Church still teaches that baptism is important, it now encourages trust in God's mercy for unbaptized babies. Limbo is no longer promoted in modern Catholic teaching, though it has not been completely erased. This change shows how theology can evolve as understanding deepens. It also reflects how ideas about the afterlife are shaped by both logic and compassion. Limbo served as a way for past generations to reconcile justice with mercy. Today, it is seen more as a historical reflection than a current belief. The concept of limbo also connects with similar ideas in other cultures. Ancient Greek beliefs described a place called Elysium for the virtuous dead. In Islam, there is Barzakh, a barrier between life and final judgment. These ideas all try to answer the same question: what happens to the souls that do not clearly belong in either heaven or hell? Whether or not limbo is real, the idea still teaches something important. It reminds people to think about justice, innocence, and the mystery of death. It also shows how religions have always searched for ways to explain what cannot be seen but deeply felt. The search continues, but the questions remain the same. Shinto. You walk through a quiet forest in Japan. Tall trees sway gently. A small wooden shrine stands alone. A thin stream flows nearby. The wind feels alive, almost like it remembers you. In Shinto belief, this feeling is not just imagination. It is the presence of something deeper, something sacred. Shinto is the ancient spiritual tradition of Japan. It does not follow one founder or holy book. Instead, it is based on a deep respect for nature, ancestors, and the invisible energy that connects all life. This energy is called kami. Kami are not gods in the way many Western religions define them. Kami are spirits or forces found in natural places, in people, in objects, and even in emotions. A mountain can be kami. So can a river, a tree, a storm, or a heroic ancestor. When a person dies in Shinto belief, they do not disappear. Their spirit becomes a kami. That spirit does not float away to another universe. It stays connected to this world. The dead are not seen as gone, but as transformed into protectors, guides, or watchers. Families honor their ancestors through rituals at home or at shrines. They keep small altars called kamidana, where offerings like rice, salt, or water are placed. These are not done out of fear, but from love and respect. Ancestors are believed to continue caring for the family. They are invited during special ceremonies like Obon, a yearly festival where people light lanterns, dance, and visit graves to welcome the spirits back for a short time. During Obon, the boundary between the living and the dead is considered thin. The spirits are not feared, they are welcomed. Shinto does not focus much on rewards or punishments after death. There is no strict heaven or hell. What matters more is harmony with nature, family, and community. When people live in a good way, they help maintain balance. When they die, their spirit continues in a peaceful state, especially if they are honored properly. But if someone dies with deep anger or pain, they might become a restless spirit. These spirits, called yurei, are believed to cause misfortune. They are not evil, but disturbed. Rituals are done to calm them, help them find peace, and guide them to become proper ancestors. This belief in lingering spirits is strong in Japanese culture. It shapes the way people think about life and death. Many Japanese homes include spaces for prayer to ancestors. Even in modern cities, shrines and temples remain busy. Children are taught to show respect to the dead, not because they are afraid of them, but because they are still part of the family. This reflects the core idea of Shinto that life and death are not separate. They are parts of the same cycle. Nature, people, and spirits all exist in a shared space. From a psychological view, this belief system supports mental health by offering a sense of continuity. It gives comfort to think that loved ones are still near. It helps reduce the fear of death. Instead of disappearing, a person becomes a source of strength. Families stay connected across generations. Actions taken today feel meaningful because they echo into the spirit world. This worldview encourages mindfulness, gratitude, and emotional balance. Historically, Shinto has shaped Japanese culture for centuries. It blended over time with Buddhism, which came later. Many Japanese people follow both traditions at once. They may go to a Shinto shrine for a baby's birth and a Buddhist temple for a funeral. But Shinto remains the native spiritual system, deeply tied to the land and its people. In the 8th century, texts like the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki recorded Shinto myths and helped form a clearer picture of its beliefs. But even today, most of it is passed down through rituals, seasonal festivals, and community customs. In simple terms, Shinto teaches that death is not an end. It is a change in form. the spirit becomes part of nature, part of memory, and part of the ongoing story of a family. That is why in Shinto, life is respected deeply. Because every action, every word, and every relationship continues long after the body is gone. Not far away, not out of reach, but right here woven into the world around us. Sikhism. You open your eyes in a world that feels both familiar and new. There is no pain, no hunger, no noise, just calm presence. In Sikhism, this state is not fantasy, but part of a real spiritual journey that continues after death. Sikhism teaches that the soul is eternal and does not die with the body. Death is not seen as an end, but as a change in the form of existence. The soul moves forward based on the truth and actions it lived by. The central belief in Sikhism is that all souls come from one divine source called Waheguru, which means the wonderful teacher. Life is seen as a gift and an opportunity to break free from the cycle of rebirth. This cycle is called samsara. It means birth, death, and rebirth over and over again. The goal of life is to merge back with Waheguru. But this only happens when the soul becomes pure and free from ego, attachment, anger, greed, and pride. According to Sikh teachings, after a person dies, the soul is judged not by rituals, but by their inner truth and their devotion to God. The Guru Granth Sahib, which is the main scripture of Sikhism, teaches that living a truthful, humble, and service-based life brings spiritual progress. It also warns against falsehood, greed, and ego. A person who lives with love, remembers God, and helps others is seen as moving toward liberation, called mukti. Sikhs believe that if a soul has not become free yet, it returns to the cycle of birth in a new body. This could be human, or even another form of life. The new life depends on the actions, or karma, of the previous one. But unlike some traditions, Sikhism focuses less on fear of punishment and more on the chance to improve. Life is seen as a valuable chance to connect with God through honest living, prayer, and helping others. There are no descriptions of hell as a place with fire and suffering. Instead, being away from God is itself considered the pain. Being close to God is heaven. So liberation is not about reaching a special location. It is about ending the feeling of separation from the divine and returning to the original source. One unique part of Sikhism is that it rejects rituals done after death for the purpose of gaining favor in the afterlife. Instead, it teaches that how you live now is what truly matters. After death, Sikhs perform simple cremation ceremonies. Family members remember the soul and pray that it continues on the right path. These actions are not believed to control the soul's future, but to show love and peace. Sikhism began in the 15th century in Punjab, India. Its founder, Guru Nanak, taught that all people are equal, and that truth and kindness are more important than religious labels or rituals. He was followed by 9 other gurus who shared the same message. Sikhism today has over 25 million followers around the world. The idea of the soul moving forward after death in Sikhism is simple and clear. Life is temporary, the soul is eternal. Death is not feared, it is accepted as a part of the journey. Through love, remembrance of God, and service to others, a soul moves closer to liberation. In the end, the return to Waheguru is not just a reward, it is the natural home of every soul. The goal is not escape, but reunion, not punishment or reward, but truth and oneness. This belief gives comfort and direction. It reminds people that every action and every moment can bring them closer to peace, both now and after life ends. Baha'i. You step through a door into a world where time feels different. There are no clocks, no rush, no fear. In the Baha'i faith, death is not the end of life, but the beginning of another form of existence. The Baha'i teachings compare this process to the change from a baby in the womb to a person in the world. In the womb, the child grows eyes, ears, and hands, though they are not needed in that space. But once born, those organs become essential. In the same way, life on earth is a time to grow spiritual qualities like kindness, patience, honesty, and love. These qualities are needed for the next stage after death. The Baha'i faith was founded in the mid-1800s by a Persian prophet named Baha'u'llah. He taught that all major religions come from the same source, and that God sends messengers like Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, and others to guide humanity. In Baha'i belief, the soul is created at the moment of physical birth. It does not pre-exist. Once created, the soul never dies. It continues to grow forever, moving closer to God. After death, the body returns to the earth, but the soul passes into a spiritual world. This world is not seen as a physical place like heaven or hell. It is a state of being. Souls that develop strong spiritual qualities in this life are able to grow closer to God in the next. Those who are selfish or harmful in this life move more slowly or stay distant from that divine light. But every soul continues to progress. The soul is never cut off completely. It always has the chance to move closer to God through prayer, the love of others, or spiritual reflection. There is no belief in punishment or torture. There is no fire or eternal suffering. Instead, separation from God is described as the greatest pain. Nearness to God is the greatest joy. This makes the afterlife in Baha'i belief more about personal growth and less about reward or fear. It is a journey of learning, not a final judgment. Baha'is also believe that souls can influence and help those still living. A person can pray for the progress of a loved one's soul. At the same time, people still on earth can receive comfort and inspiration from those who have passed on. This relationship between the physical and spiritual worlds is based on connection, not fear. The Baha'i faith teaches that death should not be feared. It is seen as a step forward. Just as a baby must leave the womb to live a full life, a person must leave this world to grow in the next. The true self is not the body, it is the soul. That soul continues its journey forever. The goal is not just to survive, but to evolve spiritually and become closer to the qualities of God. This view of the afterlife brings a deep sense of peace. It helps people focus on living with purpose, knowing that every good action here shapes the life beyond. Native American spirit journey. You lie in a quiet forest. The wind is still. Your body feels heavy, but something inside you feels light. You are no longer breathing, but you are not gone. You begin to walk. The trees part. The animals do not fear you. You are on the spirit journey. This belief comes from many Native American tribes across North America, each with its own version but a shared understanding. The spirit journey is the path that a person's soul takes after death. It is not a single place or a fixed story. It is a process, a journey that leads the soul from the world of the living to the world of the ancestors. This journey is not about punishment or reward. It is about returning home, completing the cycle of life. The belief is deeply spiritual and connected to nature. Native American cultures do not separate the body and soul the way some Western ideas do. They see life, death, and the land as one living system. When someone dies, their body returns to the earth, and their spirit begins a journey through a sacred path that reflects who they were and how they lived. Different tribes have different names and symbols for this journey. The Ojibwe speak of the path of souls, where the spirit crosses a dark river. The Lakota believe in a place called the Happy Hunting Grounds, a peaceful realm filled with animals and the beauty of nature. The Navajo believe in the Chindi, the ghost or shadow left behind if someone dies with unresolved pain. In all cases, the journey involves moving from this world to another, guided by spirit helpers or ancestors. This journey is not automatic. In many traditions, how you lived your life affects how easy or hard the journey will be. If you lived with respect, balance, and truth, the spirits will help guide you safely. If you caused harm or ignored your responsibilities to your community and nature, your spirit may wander or face obstacles before it can pass on. Ceremonies are important to support the journey. Families hold rituals to prepare the body and guide the soul. These can include smudging with sage, singing spirit songs, and offerings of food or sacred items. In many tribes, the direction west is linked to the end of life, so the body may be placed facing west to help the soul find its path. These rituals show respect for the dead and protect the living from the confusion or sadness that a lost spirit might bring. Some tribes believe that the journey takes 4 days. During this time, the spirit says goodbye, visits sacred places, and meets guides. The number 4 is important in many native cultures, representing the 4 directions, the 4 elements, and the 4 parts of life. This structure reflects the balance and order found in the natural world. Once the journey is complete, the soul joins the ancestors, who live in a spiritual version of the natural world. They are not far away. They continue to watch over the tribe, offering guidance through dreams, signs, and feelings. This belief system has strong links to the land. The spirits of ancestors are believed to live in the trees, the animals, the rivers, and the sky. When you walk through nature, you are never alone. This is why land is not just a place, but a living memory. Burial grounds and sacred spaces are treated with deep respect because they hold both history and presence. The spirit journey is not only about death, it also teaches how to live. It reminds people to walk in balance, to listen to their inner voice, and to honor the land and the people around them. If you know that death is a journey, not a stop, you try to leave no harm behind. You want your soul to travel light. Modern native communities still practice parts of this belief, even as cultures mix and change. Some elders teach the stories to younger generations through oral traditions, while others blend these teachings with Christian or other beliefs. But the heart of the spirit journey remains a deep, quiet truth that life continues, not in a straight line, but in a circle. The idea of a journey after death is common around the world. But what makes the Native American view special is how closely it is tied to the earth, to animals, to weather, and to family. It is not only a belief. It is a way of walking through life, knowing that when the body ends, the spirit begins its most important walk. Ancestral spirit world. Can someone still protect you after they've died? Why do people in many cultures believe that their ancestors are watching over them? These questions are at the heart of one of the oldest and most widespread beliefs in human history, the belief in an ancestral spirit world. Across many continents, people believe that death does not end a person's presence. Instead, it shifts their role. The dead no longer speak with mouths, but they guide through signs, dreams, and rituals. They are not gone. They have simply moved to another realm. That realm is often called the ancestral spirit world. This concept appears in cultures across Africa, Asia, the Pacific Islands, and among indigenous groups in the Americas. Though the names and details change, the structure stays surprisingly similar. The belief is that when someone dies, their spirit continues to exist and becomes part of a spiritual world that is closely linked to the living. These ancestral spirits are not random ghosts. They are family members' grandparents, great-grandparents, and even distant forebears. People believe these spirits can offer protection, advice, and even punishment depending on how the living behave. In many African traditions, for example, ancestors are seen as guardians. The Zulu people of South Africa perform rituals to communicate with ancestors through offerings, dreams, and even trance states. They believe these spirits act as intermediaries between the living and the higher divine powers. If a person disrespects family values or forgets rituals, they may face illness or bad luck. But if they maintain respect and follow the customs, the ancestors help them with health, fertility, and success. This belief influences how people live day to day. It shapes family structures, moral behavior, and even legal decisions. Ancestral approval matters as much as legal approval. In Japan, similar practices exist through a mix of Shinto and Buddhist beliefs. The spirits of the ancestors are honored through daily rituals, at home altars, and during yearly festivals like Obon. Families believe the spirits return for a short time during these festivals, and they light lanterns to guide them. These practices show that the boundary between life and death is thin. Ancestors are not distant memories. They are active participants in the family's life. In Native American traditions, ancestral spirits are part of the land. The Hopi believe their ancestors become cloud people who bring rain and protect the crops. In Hawaiian culture, Omakua are personal family gods that take the form of animals like owls or sharks. These spirits guide and protect families across generations. Stories are passed down that describe how a great-grandmother appeared in a dream to give a warning, or how a family animal behaved strangely before a major event. These are seen not as superstition, but as real evidence of a continuing connection. Scientifically, the idea of an ancestral spirit world is hard to measure, but psychologists recognize its emotional value. Believing that ancestors are watching can bring comfort, especially in difficult times. It can help people feel less alone. The idea of continuing bonds is even used in therapy, where people are encouraged to stay emotionally connected to lost loved ones. Instead of forgetting, they find ways to keep the relationship alive. This can reduce grief and increase a sense of stability. Anthropologists see the belief in ancestral spirits as a way of keeping social order. When people think their ancestors are always watching, they are more likely to follow cultural norms. It becomes less about fear and more about respect. You do not behave well just for yourself. You do it because your family past is still present. This belief system is also a way to maintain identity. In places where culture has been threatened by colonization or globalization, ancestral rituals help preserve roots. In modern life, the belief in ancestral spirits continues. In places like China, people burn paper money and offerings during the Ghost Festival, believing it helps their ancestors in the spirit world. In Latin America, Dia de los Muertos brings families together to honor and remember the dead with food, music, and photos. Even in urban settings, people keep pictures of loved ones, speak to them privately, and feel their presence during moments of decision or crisis. The ancestral spirit world is not about fear or fantasy. It is about continuity. It says that death is not the end of influence. A person may stop breathing, but their guidance, values, and presence can still live on through rituals, memories, and beliefs. For those who follow this idea, every choice is made with the past in mind. Every home becomes a shared space with those who came before. And every life becomes part of a longer, ongoing story that does not stop when the body does. Manichaean light realm. Can a universe be split into two forces so opposite that they never truly mix? Can life itself be a battle between light and darkness that continues beyond death? These questions take us deep into the ancient religion of Manichaeism, which began in the 3rd century CE. It was founded by a Persian prophet named Mani, who believed he was bringing together the teachings of earlier prophets like Buddha, Jesus, and Zoroaster. His belief system focused on one powerful idea: everything in the world, including human life and the afterlife, is a conflict between light and darkness. The soul, in this view, is not just a spirit. It is a piece of the divine light trapped inside the physical world. The Manichaean light realm is the highest and purest place in this belief system. It is the original home of the soul and the source of all goodness. According to Manichaean teachings, before time began, there were two separate realms. One was the realm of light, ruled by the Father of Greatness. The other was the realm of darkness, full of chaotic matter and ruled by evil forces. These two realms were completely different in nature. The light was peaceful, pure, and wise. The darkness was full of violence, confusion, and desire. At first, they were separate, but at some point the realm of darkness launched an attack against the realm of light. To defend the light, a part of it was sent into the world of matter. This is how the physical world was created. It is not perfect or divine. It is a battleground where light and darkness are mixed, and where the soul becomes trapped inside physical bodies. In this system, the human soul is seen as a spark of that original divine light. The body and the world around it are made from dark material that holds the soul in place. Life, then, is not just about survival or happiness. It is a spiritual mission to free the soul from the world of matter and return it to the realm of light. This can only happen through knowledge, discipline, and moral purity. Mani taught that ignorance keeps people trapped. To escape, people must learn the truth about the universe, follow strict rules of behavior, and avoid things that increase the power of darkness. These include lying, violence, selfishness, and attachment to physical pleasure. After death, the soul does not automatically go to heaven or hell. Instead, it begins a process of separation. If the person lived in alignment with the light, their soul slowly rises through layers of purity and reaches the light realm. There, it is reunited with the divine, and no longer bound by the cycle of rebirth or physical suffering. If the person lived in darkness, their soul may fall back into lower forms of life or remain trapped in the world until it becomes ready to rise. The process is not based on reward or punishment, but on spiritual condition. Just like clean water naturally rises and dirty oil sinks, the soul rises or falls depending on how close it is to the light. The Manichaean light realm is described not as a place with gold or thrones, but as a condition of perfect clarity, truth, and unity. It is beyond space and time. It is where the soul feels no hunger, no fear, and no confusion. It is where the soul no longer feels separate from anything. This vision is both simple and complex. It does not give details about streets or cities in the afterlife. Instead, it speaks about becoming what you were always meant to be, free from the influence of darkness, fully awake, and return to your true home. Historically, Manichaeism spread widely across the Roman Empire, Persia, Central Asia, and even into China. For a few centuries, it was a major world religion, but it was often seen as dangerous by other faiths and political rulers. It was banned and persecuted, and over time, it faded. Today, there are no large Manichaean communities, but its teachings still appear in other traditions and in modern discussions about duality and spiritual liberation. The light realm of Manichaeism is not a reward for being good. It is a return to origin. A soul that lives in truth and awareness simply goes back to where it belongs. This makes the afterlife not just a destination, but a reminder of the soul's purpose on earth. To separate from illusion, to recognize what is light and what is not, to prepare for return. The journey is not about becoming something new. It is about removing what is false and finding again what was always inside, the light waiting to go home. Wicca. You stand in a quiet forest as the sun sets, the light fades, and the trees begin to hum with unseen energy. You are not alone. You feel the pull of the earth beneath your feet and the sky above your head. Something is watching over you, not a person, not a god, something deeper, something older. This is where the Wiccan view of life and death begins. Wicca is a modern pagan religion that developed in the mid-20th century but draws from ancient pre-Christian beliefs. It honors nature, the cycles of the seasons, and the connection between all living things. In Wicca, death is not seen as an ending, but as a part of a larger cycle. Life, death, and rebirth are all connected, like the phases of the moon or the turning of the wheel of the year. The afterlife in Wicca is not about judgment or reward. It is about continuation and transformation. One of the central ideas in Wicca is the concept of the Summerland. This is believed to be the place where souls go after death to rest, reflect, and prepare for their next life. The Summerland is not described in strict detail because Wicca values personal belief and experience, but it is often imagined as a peaceful, beautiful place filled with nature, light, and comfort. There is no punishment here, no fire, no fear, just a return to balance. After spending time in the Summerland, the soul may choose to be reborn. This ties into the belief in reincarnation, which many Wiccans accept. A soul may live many lives, each one offering lessons, growth, and connection. The idea is that the soul keeps learning until it reaches a deeper understanding of itself and the universe. Some believe that once a soul has learned all it needs, it merges with the divine energy that flows through all things. This divine energy is not seen as a single god in the sky. Wiccans often honor both a god and a goddess, representing the masculine and feminine forces of nature. These deities are not always worshipped in the same way by every Wiccan, but they are symbols of balance and unity. Life and death are both seen as sacred parts of the natural cycle. The god is often associated with death and rebirth, especially in seasonal rituals. For example, in the Wheel of the Year, the god is born at Yule, matures through spring and summer, and then dies at Samhain, the Wiccan festival of the dead. But he is never truly gone. His death is part of the cycle and he will return again. Samhain, celebrated on the 31st of October, is one of the most important festivals in Wicca. It marks the time when the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead is thinnest. During Samhain, Wiccans honor ancestors, light candles, leave offerings, and sometimes hold rituals to communicate with spirits. This is not done with fear, but with respect. Death is not seen as scary. It is part of the journey. Wiccans also believe that spirits can visit or guide the living. Some practice mediumship or divination, using tools like tarot cards or pendulums to receive messages from beyond. These practices are done carefully and with intention, as Wiccans follow the Wiccan Rede, a key ethical rule that says, "And it harm none, do what ye will." This means that even when working with the dead, kindness and respect are required. There is no central Wiccan authority or single sacred text. Beliefs can vary widely. Some Wiccans see the afterlife symbolically, as a way to understand human experiences of grief and loss. Others see it as a literal place or process. What unites them is the belief that death is not the end. It is a doorway. Wicca's view of the afterlife is gentle, hopeful, and deeply tied to nature. It helps people see death not as a break, but as a turning point. Like the seed that falls in autumn and sleeps through winter, only to rise again in spring. The cycle never stops, it just changes shape. In Wicca, the soul is like the wind. It moves, it returns, it learns, and it always belongs to something greater than itself. Celtic beliefs. What if death was not an end, but just a door to another world? Can a person walk into another reality, one hidden within nature, time, and spirit? These questions are part of the ancient Celtic view of the afterlife, which sees life and death as deeply connected. The Celts lived across parts of Europe from around 1200 BCE, especially in what is now Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and parts of France. They had no single religion but shared a rich and complex belief system, deeply tied to nature, cycles, and spirit. Their ideas about the afterlife were rooted in a world where the living and the dead existed closer than most people today can imagine. Celtic beliefs held that the soul continued after death, moving to a different realm often called the Otherworld. This Otherworld was not a faraway heaven or underground hell. It was a parallel world, existing side by side with the world of the living. It could be entered through special place caves, lakes, ancient stone circles, or mist-covered forests. The Otherworld was seen as a peaceful land where there was no pain, no hunger, and no old age. It was described in myths as a land of beauty, music, and light. Sometimes it was called Tir na Nog in Irish mythology, meaning the land of the young. The transition to the Otherworld did not always happen immediately after death. In some stories, souls traveled through various stages or challenges before reaching it. Druids, the spiritual leaders of the Celts, believed that the soul was immortal and might even pass through several lives. This idea closely resembles what we now call reincarnation. The belief was that a soul could be born again into another body, learning and growing through many lifetimes. This made death less frightening, because it was just one chapter in a longer spiritual journey. The Celtic festivals also reflected their ideas about life after death. One of the most important was Samhain, celebrated around the 31st of October. It marked the end of the harvest and the beginning of winter. It was believed that during Samhain, the barrier between the living world and the other world became thin. Spirits of the dead could cross over and visit the living. People lit fires and wore disguises to protect themselves from unfriendly spirits, but also welcomed the presence of their ancestors. This tradition eventually evolved into what we now call Halloween. But originally, it was a serious spiritual event rooted in respect for the dead and the belief that they still had power. Many Celtic burial sites show evidence of belief in an afterlife. Archaeologists have found graves with personal items such as weapons, food, and jewelry. This suggests that people thought the dead would need these items in the next world. The idea was that the soul continued living, just in a different form. Even today, Irish folklore includes stories of people seeing or hearing loved ones after they died. These are not always seen as frightening experiences. Often, they are interpreted as visits from ancestors or reminders that the dead are still nearby. Celtic beliefs also link the soul to the natural world. Trees, rivers, and stones were seen as holding spiritual energy. The soul was thought to be part of a larger natural rhythm. This is why the Celts celebrated the cycles of the moon, the seasons, and the earth itself. They saw life and death not as opposites but as parts of a continuing flow. Just like the winter leads to spring, death leads to a new form of life. Today, some of these beliefs still survive in modern Celtic-influenced spiritual practices. In neo-pagan movements like Druidry, people honor the seasons, remember their ancestors, and believe in a spirit world beyond the visible. These modern paths may not be exactly the same as the ancient ones, but they are built on the same ideas that death is not destruction but change, that spirits continue, and that nature holds more than we can see. From a psychological perspective, these beliefs offer comfort. They help people deal with grief by keeping a sense of connection. They also encourage a respectful relationship with nature, with history, and with others. For the Celts, the afterlife was not a reward or a punishment. It was a natural next step, shaped by the life you lived and the world you came from. It was not far away. It was always close, always present, just on the other side of the mist. Taoism. You sit quietly by a flowing river. The water moves without effort. It does not fight the rocks or rush the bends. It simply flows, always returning to the sea. In Taoism, this simple scene explains everything, even death. Taoism is an ancient Chinese philosophy and spiritual tradition that began around the 6th century BCE. It was introduced by the sage Lao Tzu through a short book called the Tao Te Ching. The core idea of Taoism is the Tao, which means the way. It is not a god or a person. It is the natural order of the universe. Everything in life and death follows this way. It cannot be seen or touched, but it moves through everything. Taoism sees life and death not as two separate events, but as parts of the same cycle. Just like day follows night and spring follows winter, life flows into death, and death flows into life. There is no strict heaven or hell in Taoist belief. Instead, the soul becomes part of the Tao, the great balance that holds all things together. The Tao has no end and no beginning. It is eternal. So when a person dies, their body returns to the earth, and their spirit returns to the Tao. There is no fear in this process. It is seen as natural and peaceful. The soul in Taoism is not a fixed object. It is more like breath or energy. Taoist texts speak of two parts of the spirit. One is called the Hun, which is the bright and light part of the soul. The other is called the Po, which is the heavier, earthy part. The Hun rises after death, and the Po sinks. Together, they reflect the balance of yin and yang, the two forces that shape all life. Yin is passive and dark. Yang is active and light. These forces are never in conflict. They work together to maintain balance in the world and in each person. When someone lives in harmony with the Tao, they allow these forces to flow smoothly. Taoist practices are focused on staying balanced with nature and the universe. This includes meditation, breathing exercises, simple living, and kindness to others. The idea is not to fight against life or try to control it. Instead, people are encouraged to follow the natural rhythm of things. By doing this, they prepare their body and soul for an easy transition when death comes. Some Taoist traditions even speak about immortality, but this does not always mean living forever in the body. Instead, it often means achieving harmony with the Tao so completely that the person's spirit continues in a refined, spiritual form. In some branches of Taoism, especially religious Taoism, there are beliefs in spiritual heavens and realms where the soul might travel. There are also gods and immortals who guide the soul. But even these ideas are tied back to the central belief in flow, transformation, and balance. The Tao Te Ching says, "Being deeply loved by someone gives you strength. Loving someone deeply gives you courage. A man with outward courage dares to die. A man with inner courage dares to live." This shows how Taoism connects life and death with how we live each day. Death is not seen as failure. It is not seen as punishment. It is simply the next step in the path. In this way, Taoism removes the fear of dying. It teaches that clinging to life causes stress, but letting go and flowing with nature brings peace. In ancient China, Taoist philosophy influenced everything from medicine to art. It shaped how people saw sickness, aging, and death. Doctors tried not just to cure disease, but to keep people in balance with the Tao. Artists and poets looked to nature for truth, believing that the river, the wind, and the mountains had more wisdom than any man-made rule. Even today, millions of people around the world still follow Taoist ideas, even if they do not call themselves Taoists. The Tao is always present. It does not speak, yet it teaches. It does not command, yet it leads. It does not act, yet it accomplishes everything. In Taoism, death is not a break. It is a return to the great source, a quiet homecoming to the way that never began and will never end, just like the river that flows back to the sea. Pantheism. Can a person become part of a tree after death? Can your spirit melt into the sky, the rivers, and the stars? If everything in nature is divine, then where does the soul go when the body ends? Pantheism is the belief that everything in the universe is divine. It means that God is not separate from the world, but exists in all things. In this view, nature, people, animals, the stars, even the smallest particles, are all parts of the same divine reality. This idea is found in many cultures and philosophies, including ancient Hindu texts, Taoism, and even in modern science-inspired spirituality. In pantheism, The afterlife is not a place with gates or rewards. There is no heaven in the sky or hell below the ground. Instead, when a person dies, their soul or consciousness returns to the universe. It does not vanish but becomes part of the greater whole. Like a drop of water falling into the ocean, the individual merges with the total. Nothing is lost. Everything transforms. This belief fits with the law of conservation of energy in science, which says energy cannot be created or destroyed. The energy inside a human body and mind does not disappear after death. It changes form. The body becomes part of the earth. The consciousness, if seen as a kind of energy or pattern, becomes part of the universe's flow. This idea helps some people feel peaceful about death. It removes fear of punishment and focuses on unity. Pantheism sees life and death as natural events, not moral tests. Trees grow and fall. Animals live and pass. Humans are not different. Life is one cycle. Death is simply a change. Some pantheists believe that awareness may return in new forms, not as the same person, but as another part of nature. You may not remember your past life, but you are still part of the same whole. Philosophers like Baruch Spinoza are known for pantheistic thinking. In the 1600s, he wrote that God and nature were one and the same. Today, some scientists and environmentalists use pantheist ideas to explain deep connection to the earth. When someone dies, their energy, atoms, and impact continue in the living world. Nothing is wasted. Everything is sacred. Pantheism does not give strict rules about what happens after death. It gives a soft framework. A person is not judged. They are returned. Their existence spreads out into trees, wind, oceans, and maybe even stars. The goal is not to escape life, but to understand it is already divine. In this way, pantheism offers peace without fear and connection without borders. Mandeism. What if the soul comes from a world of light and is trapped in a body? What if death is not the end, but the release of the soul to return to its true home? Mandeism is one of the oldest surviving religions from the Middle East, mostly practiced in Iraq and Iran. It has ancient roots and shares some features with Gnostic traditions. Mandeans believe in a dual universe, the world of light, which is pure and divine, and the world of darkness, which includes the material world. Life on Earth is seen as a temporary struggle between these two forces. In Mandeism, the soul is originally from the world of light. It is sent to Earth to live in a human body, which is considered a form of imprisonment or challenge. The goal of life is to prepare the soul for its return to the light. After death, a detailed spiritual journey begins. It is not immediate. The soul must go through several stages, guided by rituals and prayers from the living. One important ritual is the Masikta. It is a ceremony performed for the dead to help the soul travel safely back to the world of light. Without this help, the soul may become trapped or confused. The soul must pass through several gates or realms, each with its own guardians. This journey is not about punishment, but purification. The soul sheds its earthly ties and regains its true identity. Water is central to Mandeism. Baptism, called Masbuddha, is performed regularly even for the living, not just at birth. It symbolizes cleansing and spiritual renewal. For the dead, water also plays a role in rituals. It represents the river of life that connects Earth to the divine world. Some texts describe the soul crossing this river as part of its return. The ultimate goal is to reunite with the great life, also called Hayi Rabbi, the highest divine force. This reunion is not a reward, but a restoration. The soul does not become a servant or enter paradise. It goes home. The cycle is complete. Mandeism is unique because it has preserved these ideas for thousands of years, despite being a small and often persecuted group. Its sacred texts, like the Ginza Rabbah, give detailed descriptions of the soul's journey after death. The religion teaches that living a truthful and kind life prepares the soul for this return. Lying, violence, or betrayal weigh the soul down, making the journey harder. Even though it is lesser known today, Mandaeism offers a detailed and structured vision of the afterlife. It blends light, spirit, water, and ritual into a system where the soul is seen as precious and eternal. Death is not an ending, but a return to the light from which all souls come. Slavic paganism. You stand at the edge of a quiet forest. The trees are tall. The wind moves slowly. There is a small fire burning near a carved wooden idol. In this moment, the living and the dead feel close. In ancient Slavic paganism, people believed that death was not the end, but a change in form. The dead did not disappear. They moved into a different world, one that existed alongside the living, invisible but active. This belief shaped rituals, festivals, and daily life for Slavic communities long before Christianity arrived in Eastern Europe. Slavic paganism refers to the religious beliefs and practices of the Slavic people before they were converted to Christianity between the 9th and 13th centuries. These people lived across areas that are now Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Belarus, and parts of the Balkans. Their afterlife ideas centered on the belief that a person's spirit, or dusha, continued existing after death. This spirit entered the world of the dead, often called Nav. Nav was not a place of torture or reward. It was a spiritual realm where the dead lived under the rule of Veles, the god of the underworld, and also of cattle, wealth, and magic. Veles was not seen as evil. He was a necessary part of the balance of nature. Life and death were both under divine order. The dead were thought to stay connected to their family and land. That is why ancestor worship was very important in Slavic paganism. People believed that their ancestors could influence their lives for better or worse. A happy ancestor could bring protection, good harvests, and peace. An angry or forgotten ancestor could cause sickness, bad luck, or even haunt the living. To keep ancestors happy, families performed rituals. They left food offerings at graves. They poured drinks on the ground during meals. They celebrated special days like Radonitsa, when they visited cemeteries, cleaned the graves, and invited the spirits to join a shared meal. These actions were not just symbolic. People believed they were truly feeding and honoring the spirits. The bond between the living and the dead was strong and constant. The transition from life to the afterlife was taken seriously. Funerals were seen as a journey. The body was washed, dressed, and placed with personal items. The burial site was often chosen carefully, sometimes near a sacred tree or water source. Fire played an important role. In many regions, bodies were cremated to help the spirit rise or travel more easily to Nav. Smoke was believed to carry the spirit to the other world. Ashes were sometimes buried in mounds or under trees, which were believed to connect the earth and the spirit world. The belief in spirits also extended beyond ancestors. Slavic paganism was filled with different types of spirits, some helpful and some harmful. Domovoi were house spirits that protected the home. Rusalka were water spirits, sometimes seen as souls of young women who died tragically. The world was full of spirit forces. People learned to live with them, respect them, and sometimes fear them. This view of the world made people more connected to nature, to family, and to invisible energies around them. After the spread of Christianity in Slavic lands, many of these beliefs were changed or hidden, but they never fully disappeared. Even today, some rural customs in Eastern Europe preserve parts of the old pagan worldview. People still visit graves on certain days. They still leave offerings. They still tell stories of spirits that live in forests or houses. Psychologically, these beliefs helped people manage death and grief. They gave meaning to suffering and a sense of control through ritual. Culturally, they created strong family ties that extended across generations. Spiritually, they made death less frightening by placing it within a larger cycle of life, death, and return. Slavic paganism teaches that the soul continues. It stays close. It watches. It waits. It remembers. This belief made the afterlife not a place far away, but something just behind the trees, just beneath the ground, or right outside the door. Always there, always listening. Tenrikyo. What happens after the body stops working but the heart still feels connected to those who passed? Can death be seen as a step in a long journey instead of a final goodbye? In Tenrikyo, a religion that started in Japan in the 19th century, death is not the end of a person's existence. Instead, it is described as the soul returning to its origin to prepare for a new life. This belief offers a calm and positive view of life and what follows after. Tenrikyo was founded in 1838 by a woman named Nakayama Miki, who is now called Oyasama by her followers. She taught that God the Parent created humans to live a joyful life and to help one another. According to Tenrikyo, the body is something borrowed from God, but the mind belongs to the person. This idea is key to how Tenrikyo views death. Since the body is borrowed, when life ends, the soul gives it back. But the soul itself does not die. It returns to the source, and then comes back to earth in a new body. This cycle continues, giving each person chances to grow, learn, and live more joyfully with each life. This process is called denaoshi, which means making a fresh start. It is not seen as punishment or reward. It is simply part of how the world works. Just as a student moves to the next grade, the soul continues its journey in another form. The goal is not escape or heaven, but spiritual maturity. By facing life's challenges and helping others, people become more in tune with the teachings of Tenrikyo and with God's desire for joy and harmony. In everyday practice, followers of Tenrikyo focus on living gratefully, avoiding selfish thinking, and supporting others. When someone dies, it is not treated as a tragedy. It is understood as a temporary separation. Families gather to pray and express thanks. There is sadness, but it is softened by the belief that the person will return to life. Their soul is never lost. It is simply preparing for a new start. Tenrikyo also teaches that illness and misfortune are not punishments. They are messages from God to help the person reflect and grow. Death, in this way, is part of that same system. It is a reset that gives the soul another chance to improve. Followers believe that living with sincerity and positive thoughts helps create better futures, both in this life and the next. This view stands apart from many religious ideas of judgment or eternal reward. Tenrikyo offers a peaceful way to see death. It removes fear and encourages action. People are not judged for one lifetime. They are given more than one. Life is a classroom. Death is recess. The soul continues learning. And the most important lesson is always the same life, with joy, kindness, and respect for the lives of others. Aboriginal Australian beliefs. You walk across the red desert. The earth beneath your feet is warm and silent. You feel the presence of ancestors in the rocks, in the wind, in the stars above you. You are not alone. You are standing inside a story that never ends. Aboriginal Australian beliefs about the afterlife are deeply connected to a sacred system called the dreaming, also known as the dream time. The dreaming is not just a story of the past. It is a living spiritual world that explains the creation of the land, the animals, and the people. It is both a time and a place. It is the beginning, the now, and the future all at once. Everything that exists is part of this dreaming. Life, death, and even rebirth are woven into it. When a person dies in Aboriginal belief systems, their spirit leaves the body but does not disappear. It returns to the dreaming. The specific path of the spirit depends on the traditions of the person's clan, land, and totem group. There are over 500 Aboriginal groups across Australia, and each has its own customs and beliefs. but they share a common idea. The spirit goes back to the ancestral world. In many Aboriginal groups, the spirit travels to a sacred place connected to their totem or birthplace. This journey is guided by ceremonies, songs, and stories. The living family performs rituals to help the spirit find its way and avoid getting lost. These rituals may include burning certain plants, singing specific songs, or painting symbols on the body. The community plays an active role in helping the soul move peacefully. One key belief is that the spirit returns to the land. The earth is not just soil, it is alive with meaning. Sacred sites are not chosen at random. They are believed to be the resting places of ancestral beings, or the locations where important events in the dreaming took place. When a person dies, their spirit joins these ancestors. This is why land is so important in Aboriginal culture. Losing land means losing access to ancestors and spiritual life. Spirits can also return to watch over their families. Some Aboriginal groups believe that dreams are one way the dead communicate with the living. If a person sees a deceased loved one in a dream, it is not just memory, it is contact. It can be a message, a warning, or a comfort. These experiences are taken seriously. They are part of the ongoing relationship between the living and the dead. The idea of reincarnation is also present in many groups. Some believe that a spirit may be reborn into the same family, especially if the child is born soon after a death. Signs such as birthmarks, dreams during pregnancy, or a child's behavior may be seen as clues that the spirit has returned. This belief keeps families and communities deeply connected across generations. Unlike many Western religions, Aboriginal spirituality does not focus on judgment, sin, or eternal reward or punishment. The afterlife is not a test of morality. It is a return to the original source. A person's actions still matter, but they are more about maintaining balance, respect, and harmony with the land and community than following fixed laws. Many of these beliefs continue today, even though Aboriginal people have faced centuries of colonization, displacement, and cultural destruction. Despite this, elders still pass on stories through oral tradition, and ceremonies are still performed. In some places, these practices are blended with Christian ideas, but the core remains. Life is part of the dreaming, and death is a step back into that sacred flow. Modern researchers and anthropologists have recorded thousands of dreaming stories that describe what happens after death. Some speak of spirits traveling through the sky to become stars. Others describe long journeys through the desert to sacred resting places. These stories are not just myths, they are maps. They guide both the soul and the people who remain. The Aboriginal view of the afterlife is not about fear or mystery. It is about connection to the land, to the ancestors, and to the great cycle that has no true end. It teaches that every life is part of a greater story, and when that life ends, it becomes a part of the land that will one day speak to someone else. Paranormal. Can someone's presence still be felt after they die? Can objects move, sounds echo, or lights flicker with no clear reason? Many people around the world believe that death does not always mean complete silence. This is where the idea of the paranormal comes in. The word paranormal means anything that cannot be explained by normal scientific understanding. It includes ghosts, spirits, haunted places, and strange events that suggest something beyond the natural world. While science depends on evidence and repeatable results, paranormal experiences are often personal, emotional, and mysterious. Yet they are deeply connected to how people imagine the afterlife. The core idea in paranormal afterlife theories is that a part of the person continues to exist after physical death and sometimes interacts with the living world. This part is usually called the spirit or ghost. A spirit is believed to be the non-physical part of a person, their thoughts, feelings, and personality separated from the body after death. Some believe these spirits remain in the place they lived especially if they had unfinished business, died suddenly, or experienced strong emotions like fear, love, or anger. These spirits are said to cause unexplained sounds, movements, or even appearances. This belief is not new. It has existed for thousands of years, across cultures. In ancient Egypt, the Ka and Ba were two parts of the soul that could travel after death. In China, ancestral spirits were believed to visit homes. In medieval Europe, ghost stories became common, often tied to religious teachings about purgatory. In modern times, ghost hunting and paranormal investigation have become popular in media, especially through shows and documentaries that use cameras, sound equipment, and sensors to try and capture proof of spirits. Most scientists argue that these tools only detect environmental noise or psychological effects, but millions of people still report personal experiences that they believe cannot be explained. Paranormal afterlife theories often include haunted locations. These are places where people believe spirits stay. They might be old houses, hospitals, prisons, or battlefields. One of the most famous examples is the Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, where visitors have reported voices, shadows, and sudden cold spots. The Queen Mary ship in California is another, with hundreds of ghost sightings reported over the years. People who believe in paranormal activity say that spirits may leave behind an energy imprint. This energy could be emotional memory, repeating itself like a loop. Some compare it to a recording stuck on replay. There are also more personal experiences. People say they feel the presence of a loved one after death. Some smell their perfume. Some hear their voice in dreams. Some sense their hand on a shoulder during grief. Psychologists explain many of these moments as natural parts of mourning. The brain looks for comfort and patterns. But believers argue that not all these moments can be dismissed as imagination. For many, these experiences are real, powerful, and bring peace. In this way, the paranormal becomes part of emotional healing. Another theory within paranormal belief is the concept of spirit communication. Mediums are people who claim to connect with the dead. They say they receive messages through visions, feelings, or voices. While many have been exposed as fake, some cases remain unexplained. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, spiritualism grew in popularity, especially in Europe and the United States. People attended seances to try and contact the dead. Famous figures like Arthur Conan Doyle supported it. Critics, however, pointed out tricks and illusions used to fake results. Still, the idea remained powerful because it gave people hope and comfort. From a cultural view, belief in the paranormal helps people deal with the unknown. Death is final and often painful, but the thought that some part of a person stays nearby brings emotional safety. It also helps explain things that feel wrong or out of place. A sudden chill, a flickering light, or an odd sound becomes meaningful rather than random. While science may not confirm these beliefs, their social role is strong. In modern psychology, this falls under the study of thanatology science of death and dying. Studies show that belief in paranormal afterlife ideas is often highest during times of stress or loss. It provides emotional closure and sometimes encourages people to live with more purpose, thinking that their actions might echo beyond death. Whether or not the paranormal is real, its influence is clear. It fills the space between what we can prove and what we still feel. In the end, the paranormal is not only about fear or curiosity, it is about the human need to believe that love, memory, and presence can last longer than breath. And that's it. Hope you're in peace. Just consider subscribing, because sleep matters. Just then, stress scatters and nothing else matters, right? Peace out.